The story begins with a boy named Gio trying to wake up his sister Sina to get ready to be in the festival of descending gods. She didn't seem to be waking up, but since he was insisting, she got up and raised her arms up for him to dress her up, but he told her to get ready on her own. When he left the room, he was thinking about how spoiled his sister was. Even though once they receive their gifts at today's festival of the descending gods, they will be adults. Sina and Gio both turned 15 that year. They were siblings despite being the same age. And due to the fact that they have different mothers, he was born a few months earlier than her. He didn't know much detail, but he was sure their mothers were disgusted by their father's behavior, fell out of love, and left him. Their father was an outstanding adventurer but passed away 10 years ago. Since then, Sina and Gio have been living together on their own. On their way to the praying, Sina wondered what kind of gifts they would receive in the festival. Gio wished to have a gift that would be useful for adventuring. He wanted to be an adventurer just like his dad. Sina had a feeling that he would get an incredible gift. She was as non-committal as ever. She said that if she could support him in that, she would be satisfied in her life. Everyone was already praying when they arrived at their destination, so they immediately joined them. It was a custom of the festival of the descending gods to pray to the gods as the sun rises. It was said that you received your gift in that instant. Gio was praying so hard for something that could be useful in adventuring. While he was praying, an angel-looking woman gave him his gift. The gifting ceremony was over and all the other kids were telling what they got as a blessing. Sina asked Gio how it went, but he sidestepped her question and asked about her blessing. Apparently her blessing is called Favor of the Sword God. That sounded amazing for Gio, and he was sure that it would be useful during adventures. She then asked what he got, and even though he wanted and prayed for something useful for adventuring, he got a blessing called Home Garden. Sifa and Annie appeared, and Annie made fun of his gift. Sifa thought it was rude to make fun of a god's gift, and she would be damned. Sifa wasn't familiar with that gift, and Sina also wondered if he would be able to support him using that gift. Sif stated that gifts were only as good as the people who use them, and if he learned to use it well, she was sure it would come in handy. Compared to her kindness, Annie was still holding her laugh because of his gift. Sifa and Annie were their childhood friends, and Sifa was 3 years older than them. Annie was born just a little before him and received her gift last year. Right now, those two were working as adventurers. Annie's gift was Hunter's Nose, and Sifa's gift was Empress's Authority, which was a particularly rare gift. Because of her rare gift, she had already been recognized as a superior adventurer even at her age. The primary reason why Gio wanted to be an adventurer was Sifa. It seemed that Annie was the first one to notice that, since it was pretty obvious just by watching him. While he was in the middle of a breakdown, Annie and Sifa asked what Sina's gift was. When she said it was the Favor of the Sword God, even though they never heard of it, they would say it was pretty strong. Annie thought Sina should definitely become an adventurer and even asked her to join their party. Sifa also would like to welcome her with open arms. Gio was gloomy because of his unlucky, but when Sina asked if it was okay to become an adventurer, he told her that she didn't need to hesitate. He couldn't even imagine how he would be able to earn a living with his skill, and he couldn't expect her to take care of him. He also mentioned that Sina was an adult now, and she had to work hard on her own too. She then made her decision and was ready to be an adventurer. She waved at him while saying she was going to earn a whole bunch of money while she was young, then laze around for the rest of her life. When she left, Gio was alone with his thoughts, and he couldn't believe that all of the people, he was the ones who got Home Garden. He started to walk to their yard while thinking about what he could do with it. Their yard was completely overgrown, and without a garden, that gift was completely useless. Suddenly, a voice asked him if he would like to designate a garden, and a garden was created right in front of him. He couldn't understand what was happening exactly, and a voice asked him if he would like to design the garden, and even though he didn't really get it, he accepted. The moment he agreed, the garden had been designed. The soil was soft just like from a cultivated field. Suddenly a chart appeared in front of him, and the voice asked if he would like to start cultivating. There were lots of crops that he could choose to cultivate in that garden. He gave it a try and chose potato. After specifying the amount and the location, cultivation of the potato began. He realized that he didn't plant a seed to grow. He then tried to grow some other crops too. One crop could go in 1 square and the field had 50 squares. He then put 10 crops in 5 squares each. After finishing the work, the yard appeared unchanged. He decided to periodically check on it, but when he returned inside an hour later, he was delighted to find that it had transformed into a beautiful garden. That's when he realized that his gift was to grow a garden in an hour, while it usually took several months to grow. There were a ton of fruits and they all looked juicy and delicious. He wondered if he could harvest those now, but seemed like a lot of work for him. The voice asked if he would like to harvest the crops, and the vegetables started to move by themselves. When he thought about all the things his gift could do, he thought that was pretty handy since he didn't have to get his hands dirty. He then tasted one of the tomatoes and it was super sweet. The flesh was firm and the jelly-like pulp was plentiful. It was as sweet as a fruit, but the acidity comes through too. He felt like he could eat a ton of them and it was only the mid-qualities. Meanwhile, Sina and the others were leaving the town. There was a dungeon under the control of the Lord of Arcel nearby. Sifa mentioned that they were the ones who explored it. It was a dangerous labyrinth where monsters nest, but they could get valuable resources from it. Since Sina was still a novice, they would just have her get used to fighting against the weak monsters in the vicinity of Arcel. While they were planning to practice first, Annie sensed a monster and immediately kept her guard up. It was only a single goblin, so it was the perfect opponent for a novice adventurer. Before they could tell Sina to get ready, she rushed alone to the goblin. Annie and Safi tried to warn her, but she was sure that she could take down a goblin. She cut off the goblin's head with one swing and smiled cutely like it was nothing. With the guts to suddenly challenge a monster alone, the high power output and the willpower to kill a living thing, even if it was just a monster without hesitation, and most importantly, that skill with the sword was enough to believe that they have found an unexpectedly talented adventurer. At night, Sina came back to her practice while Gio was finishing making dinner. When he learned she fought a monster on her first adventure, he was so worried about her, but Sina nonchalantly told him that she was fine. She told him that he worried too much like Safi and Annie, but even if it was a monster, it was actually pretty weak. It was her first time using a sword, but she had no problems wielding it right from the start. Gio relieved and put a big plate of stew in front of her. He used the vegetables he harvested today to make something lavish. With a big excitement in his face, he asked how the stew was, and Sina was amazed by the food. He also tried and loved it. The flavor was so thick and sweet. It was the first time they had such yummy vegetables. Gio was so happy that Sina was enjoying the meal so much. After she finished her second plate, he asked her to come to the yard and he would explain. She was shocked when she saw the garden he made. She asked if it was his home garden gift and he approved her. It seemed like they would be able to cut down on food expenses with it. Sina was thrilled to hear that they could be able to eat tasty stuff like that every day. Gio was envious of people who received gifts useful for adventuring, but the home garden gift was surprisingly incredible too. Gio noticed that Sina dropped some kind of rock and she explained that it was a magic stone and she got it from today's adventure. When he picked up the stone, the voice inside his head asked if he would like to use it. He asked Sina if the stones were made of solidified mana and she approved him. He then asked if he could have the stone. Sina didn't mind it but wondered the reason. He used the stone and after a day, he found out that he could actually grow meat too. Later on, Sina is fighting with monsters in the outskirts of Arcel Dungeon. She successfully managed to defeat every monster they faced. Safi and Annie were comfortable because as long as they had Sina's ability, they didn't have to worry. It seemed like they would be able to do a proper search this time. Sina found another magic stone and took it with her, and when Annie asked why she kept it since it was something small, she explained that it was a souvenir for her brother. Sifa asked about Gio since he wasn't very lively after the festival of the descending gods. Sina told them to not worry about it because he was taking care of their home happily. Besides, with his gift, he might just be able to take over the world. Safi and Annie didn't understand what she was actually meant by that, so she invited them over to have dinner. When Gio heard that they were coming, he started to panic since it had been a long time since Sifa last came to their house. He wanted to show her his great hospitality and make her happy. However, Sifa was always wearing a poker face, so it was tough to read how she was feeling. He began to worry about whether he could make her happy or if he would disappoint her. Sina explained to him that they wanted to see his garden. He figured that treating them to some of the crops from the home garden would make them happy, and Sina backed him up because there was no doubt about his crop's taste. Since Sina is always delighted at mealtimes, there was a possibility that Sifa would be as well, so he decided to make the garden look extra great and give them a warm welcome. After they finished with the garden, it didn't look like a normal garden at all. Sina gave him the magic stones she found at the dungeon and he thanked her. He was on the verge of leveling up. Somehow, when you use a magic stone, it levels up the garden. And when it does, the amount of space in the garden increases, as does the variety of crops available for cultivation. Not knowing what would happen that time, he tried to level up the garden. The magic stones had been used and now it was possible to expand the garden space and cultivate new crops. He checked if there was anything new and noticed that there were some things that he didn't know yet, like great burdock shiso and sweet potato. He asked if Sana knew them, but she didn't have any idea either. He tried to plant them, and a few hours later a bunch of new vegetables had sprung up. When they harvested the sweet potatoes, they were shocked by their color. He cooked the potatoes and they tasted it. They both were happy that it tasted very good and sweet even though the texture was just like a potato. Sina promised to collect more magic stones and he was happy that his lazy-bone sister was feeling motivated. Things kept going smoothly and his garden's level kept increasing. He also gained some new skills too. After a few days, Safi and Annie arrived and they welcomed them. Gio had his full attention on Safi and totally forgot about Annie. Annie and Safi explained that Sina spoke so highly of him that they decided to come have a look. Gio was sure she was blowing things out of proportion. Annie stated that a plain gift like a home garden could never take over the world. But before she could finish her sentence, she was fascinated by his garden. His whole yard was a garden, and there were so many varieties of crops. Even a beautiful fence had been erected. Sina mentioned that she was pretty surprised too when he suddenly erected the fence. Annie couldn't believe that it was all thanks to his gift, and he explained that when he reached level 5, he learned the skill of fence generator and built a fence surrounding their yard in an instant. She was looking down on it before, but she was impressed that he could make such a splendid garden. Annie was asking a bunch of questions and tasting the crops. He was surprised that Annie was so baffled, but also anxious that Safi didn't make any comment about anything. When he asked about her opinion, she stated that she was shocked at how wonderful it was in an indifferent face. He used his trump card, which was offering the food he had harvested from his garden. Annie got excited that she was about to eat good food with those delicious vegetables. When they saw the meat tree, they were both shocked. She thought she was seeing a hallucination about meat growing on a tree. Gio said he was shocked when he first saw it too. Annie couldn't understand how this works because meat wasn't something he could just make like this, but he explained that it was possible with his home garden. Either way, the crops from his garden were really tasty. He then harvested some meat and Annie watched the process, but she was speechless. Sina suggested using the meats for a barbecue. Annie was still in disbelief, but Safi seemed surprisingly calm about the meat tree, assuring them that it was part of Gio's gift and there was no need to worry. Gio's face lit up and they began preparing for the barbecue. Once the meats were ready, Sina insisted on trying them first, but he offered the first bite to Safi. Although Gio was apprehensive about her reaction, Sifa blushed and enjoyed the taste of the meat. Gio was overjoyed to have pleasantly surprised Sifa, while Sina offered some to Annie, who also seemed to relish it. After they ate the meat, he brought some sweet potato tart as a dessert. They had never heard of it before, but when they tasted it, all of them were pleased by the taste. Gio knew that sweet things were always a big hit with women. Sina praised her brother's gift and Annie agreed to her. Safi stated that having a splendid garden where a variety of things grow was truly incredible, with a big smile on her face. Gio was stunned to speak for a second because that was the first time Safi was smiling like that for him. He accidentally stated that he was so happy that she enjoyed it. When he realized that he said something inappropriate, he tried to change the topic and told them to have as much as they liked, since there was still some left. He was worried he wouldn't be able to show her the appropriate hospitality, but thanks to his gift he could please Sifa and managed to see her smile. Annie then wondered if he could eat everything he had grown. Sina was quite the glutton, but he didn't think even she could eat all that. Since it grows in the blink of an eye and always in huge amounts, he thought it was too much for the two of them. Annie gave him the idea of letting his shop use the food he harvested in his garden. The shop she meant was Annie's family's restaurant. In the next scene, Gio was walking towards Annie's restaurant with 2 bags of vegetables and meat in his hands. He couldn't hide his surprise when he saw the crowd in front of the new place across from their restaurant. When one of the waitresses approached Gio to offer service, Annie appeared and scolded Gio for getting lured in by their competition. When they got to the front of Annie's family restaurant, it was empty. He asked if it was open for business, and Annie explained that it used to thrive, but a while ago that competitor set up shop and stole all their customers. Gio and Sina had come there countless times before, but seeing it like that was heartbreaking to him. Annie's parents were often away on long trips, and she had been gone a lot while adventuring. That left to her sister to do her best to take over the restaurant. Annie's big sister Alicia had been helping out in the restaurant since long ago. She was a kind and gutsy woman. While they were talking, Alicia appeared with a revealing apron and welcomed them. Annie scolded her about her outfit, but she explained that they were in the red because of the new restaurant opened in front of them, so she had no choice but to fight fire with fire by donning an outfit more scandalous than theirs. She then asked Gio if she turned him on, but before he could say something that made sense, Annie interrupted her again by saying that her chest was as flat as paper. However, instead of getting offended by her words, she suggested her to wear that outfit. She immediately rejected her, but she insisted by saying there was no doubt her boobs would bewitch and man. The topic changed when Alicia stated that it was up to her to figure out how to keep the restaurant going since Annie was an adventurer. Annie explained that this place was also super important to her and she wanted to help out. Even without all the seduction, her cooking should draw in customers. However, their menu didn't stand out and their storefront looked so plain. At that rate, the restaurant was going to close down. Gio couldn't believe that Alicia was worrying that much. He explained that he came there today because Annie asked him to help her out with his home garden. When he showed the goods he brought, Alicia was shocked. There were even some things she had never seen before. Those were called great burdock and shiso. And more importantly, he brought a bag of rice, which was a very grain. Apparently it was not harvested in that area, and it was seldom imported as well. She could only see it available once in the market, but it wasn't as white and clean as his grains of rice. She was amazed he managed to grow something like that, and wondered what kind of garden he had. When Annie said he could also grow meat on trees, she was even more shocked. Annie then asked her to cook something using those ingredients because she would rather her precious sister not have to resort to seduction. When she started cooking, Gio was amazed by her cooking skills. The real issue was the rice, and Annie found a book that mentions how to prepare rice. It seemed hard to do, but he gave it a try, and after 8 failed attempts, it finally seemed great. Meanwhile, people were waiting in line to get some food and they were starving. Annie opened the door of the Lucas and invited them to eat at Lucas. People seemed interested in her words. She mentioned that they have a highly recommended new menu, and a few people asked if they could order something. Gio served the most highly recommended dishes, which were potato salad, meat rolls with great burdock and shiso, hearty vegetable soup, and most importantly, rice. They were very surprised to find something that rare in a normal restaurant like that. Gio was sure they would enjoy it because Annie and Alicia worked so hard for it. When they tasted the rice, they realized that it was so fluffy and soft. People were amazed by all the food they served them. They also seemed to like Annie and Alicia's charming faces. The sounds they were making were heard by people outside, attracting more attention. It got super busy, but Alicia looked really happy. One of the customers wondered where they get the ingredients for their food, and Gio was about to tell them his garden, but Annie stopped him. The customers didn't seem to understand what was going on, but were still surprised by how great the restaurant was. People were saying that they would come there from now on because the restaurant across the street had mediocre food even though the girls were pretty. Gio said that Lucas had great food and a spectacular owner. When the restaurant closed for the day, Alicia thanked Gio for his help. The fact that they were dead up until yesterday was like a bad dream now. He was glad he could help her and told her to keep using his ingredients if she would like. She was indeed planning to use his ingredients and promised him to pay him properly as well, but he stated that it wasn't necessary. She instantly started yelling, saying no matter how long they had known each other, she couldn't take advantage of him as a businesswoman and would pay twice the market rate for that quality. Gio informed her that nothing would make him happier than continuing to run that restaurant, and she could pay him the market price for now. Once she had more money, they could discuss it again later. Alicia seemed to be very charmed by him and asked about his opinions on older women. Thinking about Safi, he mumbled that they were wonderful. She then asked if he would like to date her. Annie slammed the door and told her to stop teasing Gio since he was an overly trusting idiot. She gave up, but then whispered to Annie's ear that if she didn't watch out, she really would make a move on him. Annie blushed and tried to act like she didn't care. Alicia left the room after saying she was going to do her best for Lucas. When she left, Annie and Gio started to talk about today, and Annie told him that he should limit the amount of people he told about his gift, because someone could abuse such an incredible power like that. He could be abducted and forced to produce more continuously. He promised to be careful and asked if she was worrying about him. She tried to reject that idea by saying if something happened to him, it would be bad for their restaurant. Gio was glad he could trust her and the others about telling his secret. Annie told him that she couldn't really do much to help his sister, and it was he who saved the day. He told her to not worry about it since they were childhood friends. She then mumbled some things about how idiot he was, but he couldn't hear it. She then thanked him with a cute gesture. He thought she ate something strange since she was being so upfront. When Annie left, he was thinking about how glad he was that he could make so many people happy today. A few days later, a small girl carrying a large bag walked down the street and noticed that the line at Lucas was longer than the one at the restaurant across the street. She had a hunch that the owner of Lucas had some sort of secret, which stirred up her business instincts. In the next scene, Sina walked to her brother and asked what the problem was. Gio wanted to show her the garden and what it had become. Crows had haunted the garden and destroyed everything. Sina told him they were being a real pain in the neck by wreaking havoc lately. Sina, with her sword in her hand, asked her brother with a sly smile if he would allow her to exterminate them. Although Gio found this idea disturbing, according to Sina, crows were nothing to adventurers and it wouldn't be a problem to get rid of them all. However, none of the crows were coming, so Gio thought they were scared of Sina because when he was alone, they came out in droves. Sina made fun of her brother and asked if the crows underestimated him or not, and then told him maybe she could start working as the protector of the garden. Gio told her she would only laze around in the house if she did that. Then he told her it was time for her adventure and sent her. After Sina went, he thought the crows were scared off for now by Sina. A fence would be useless against them and there was no way he could constantly stand guard. He decided to use magic stones, which would be enough to level up. Then he leveled up to 10. It was now possible to expand the area of their garden. Gio learned a new skill. At that moment, someone appeared and called out to Gio. Gio had to put aside exploring his new skill for now. He asked her who was she. She said her name was Lirucaleria, and she was a merchant. Gio met her and asked her if she had any business there. She said she had been hearing rumors about how delicious the food at Lucas was recently, so she tried it out for herself and she was quite impressed. Then she started to wonder where in the world they got their ingredients from, so she decided to stand watch outside the restaurant, and eventually she got there. Gio tensed the fact that it meant she was following him. Gio wondered even more who this girl was. He gave her some apples and she tasted them. She wanted to make a business deal with him no matter what now. That time he was only dealing with Lucas, but she was thinking of Lyricalyria acting as an intermediary. She believed he could make deals with even more people and shops. She asked him if he was interested in something like that. He said he was interested a little, but then Lyricalyria told Gio he didn't have to be so on guard. She said that Poppets like her didn't do crooked business deals as a rule. Gio thought the Poppets didn't have a bad reputation and they were known as an intelligent race that despises quarrels. Lyricalyria suggested signing a magic contract because Gio seemed worried. She said they would be bound by magic to keep their promises. The magic contracts were used to keep business secrets and personal information concealed. She said it was a vow not to divulge information regarding his gift. She said that they could talk about his gift in more detail after signing the contract. Gio was still a little uneasy, but with a proper contract, it should be fine. He decided to sign it, then signed the contract, and after that she thanked her. She said that it meant a magic contract had been established. Lyricalyria wanted to move on to the topic at hand quickly, and Gio showed her his home garden. They went to the garden and she saw some meat growing on a tree. She was so shocked to see such a thing. He said he could also grow a variety of vegetables, fruits, and mushrooms. To put it simply, he didn't need to plant any seeds. The crops were growing in 1 hour. He could harvest everything instantly, and there was a large variety of crops available. Lyricalyria was honestly stunned. Gio found the way Lyricalyria spoke strange and worried about whether she was truly trustworthy. He couldn't help but think that there might be a deceptive side to her. After that, he thought that he was probably misjudging her. Then again, he thought one could never be too careful. Besides, Lyricalyria was thinking about all of those products and how high they would go, and all things considered, he had quite a variety of crops. Lyricalyria asked her what other kinds Gio had. He said he recently unlocked fish. She thought if this garden had meat growing on trees, it wasn't weird to have fish as well. While Gio was collecting the fish, he mentioned that he did not know how to cook them. Lyricalyria offered to cook fish for him as a symbol of their new friendship, as she had learned how to prepare and cook fish during her previous trades in seafood. Lyricalyria cut the fish cleanly, and Gio found her quite knowledgeable about the fish stuff. While cooking the fish, she talked about her desire to become an adventurer. Gio found the home garden was an incredible gift, but it was definitely not too useful for adventuring. They talked and talked and the fish were ready. Everything was looking so tasty. When he tasted the fish, it tasted completely different from dried fish. The flavor was subtle but still had depth. He had no idea fish could be this juicy. He asked about Lyricalyria's opinion and she was fascinated by the food. She stated that she never had a fish this delicious before. She realized that she spoke with an accent, so she immediately apologized to him and explained that she originally had that kind of accent. Gio told her that it was okay, and in fact, he was relieved that everything was good. He thought it was all thanks to her, but she refused the statement and told him that it was all thanks to him. They argued for a while and then laughed at their situation. Lyricalyria mentioned that giving and taking were the foundation of a good business deal. She also told him that she would love it if he simply referred to her as Lyruca. They come to the garden while talking about expanding the yard, and suddenly a bunch of crows comes again. They were trying to get his fish, but he took a shovel in his hand and was confident that he could drive away some of the crows, but it did not seem like they were taking him seriously. They got some of the fish and he remembered that he learned a new skill called Guardian Creation today, and used it. A big golem was being created from the soil, and he ordered it to chase away the crows. Lyruca was questioning what was going on and he explained that it was something his gift could do. The golem chased away all the crows successfully. Lyruca was thinking about how ridiculous his skill was. He told her that he would be able to grow more fish without worrying now. After that, Lyruca left to arrange some business deals, and with the garden being protected by the golem, his tranquil life returned. A few days later, she came back and thanked him for the other day. She told him that she bought the plot of land behind his house and she was giving it to him. She also believed that expanding his garden would be the most efficient manner to increase his yield. He told her that he didn't have any money to buy the land. She said that she was giving it to him for free and she would make a profit on that too after all. He thanked her and stated that he was looking forward to working with her. He was certain that he could trust Lyruca. She then offered to arrange for the abandoned house in the back demolished. Gio didn't think they needed to worry about that because he could use his gift to design the garden. Meanwhile, Sina was shocked when she saw the yard that was connected to the neighboring plot. When she couldn't understand what was going on, Gio explained that the land was transferred to him, and thanks to that, he can now grow a larger variety of crops. Many innovations had come, from various varieties of meat trees to delicious fish grown in the soil. Due to the scarcity of golems in the garden, he didn't forget to create more golems. Sina was happy because of the abilities that added to him. While Sina was playing with golems, Gio was trying to decide on the next crops he would plant, and he also remembered that he could now create medicinal plants. He learned that he could even produce a plant needed for an elixir that could heal poisons called Im. Apparently, there was an apothecary Sina usually goes, but lately, she had been out of healing potions because she couldn't get any Im. She mentioned that Sifa had been pretty put out by that and said they couldn't progress in the dungeon without them. When he heard Sifa's name, he realized that if he grew Im, it might make Sifa happy. He then quickly harvested some Im and arrived at the apothecary shop Sina mentioned, but it looked like an abandoned place. There was no open sign, and he wondered what kind of person runs a shop like that. He went inside and there seemed to be no one around there. There were only a bunch of dubious medicines there. A door opened and a little girl with a maid costume named Dennis welcomed him. He asked if she was working there and she replied that she was the shopkeeper and the apothecary's assistant. When he asked about her costume, a strange-looking woman appeared and said it was Dennis's special uniform. The woman was Marlene, the shop owner. He thought she was a zombie at first, but she does fit the image of someone working in that abandoned building. Dennis was begging to take off the outfit, but she didn't allow her. He thought it was a get-up to attract customers just like the incident at Lucas. So he mentioned that Dennis was looking cute in that outfit. However, to his surprise, the reason Dennis hated the outfit was not because she was ugly, it was because Dennis was actually a boy. Even better. Marlene immediately objected and told him that he wasn't a boy, he was a femboy, but he didn't even know what femboy meant. Gio was having a hard time processing all that. While Dennis insisted that he was a real boy, Marlene was saying how natural-born femboy he was. Gio thought it would be better to go home, but Dennis stopped him and asked what was the reason he came there. He mentioned that he heard they were lacking the ingredients for healing potions and showed them the Im he brought. Marlene and Dennis were speechless. Gio wasn't sure if they were Im, but Dennis said that there was no doubt about it. Marlene had never seen any incredibly fresh ones brimming with mana. If she used that Im, she could even make high-grade potions, she said. Gio didn't know what the high-grade meant, so Dennis explained that it was the quality of the potion. Based on their effectiveness, potions were divided into 3 categories, which were high, mid, and low. The higher the grade, the more valuable they were. Thanks to Marlene's gift, she was able to detect the quality of potions just by looking at them. It was Dennis's first time seeing so much IWM at once, so he wondered where he gathered them, but he wanted to keep that as a secret. Leaving that aside, he felt nervous seeing Marlene's intense gaze. Gio then hesitantly told her that he had a favor to ask of her. He mentioned his sister and told her that he wanted to sell the IWM he brought in at a cheap price and asked her to prioritize selling potions to his sister's party when they came to her shop. After a few seconds of silence, she accepted his offer with one condition. She stated that she was the one who gets to love Dennis first, but he did not have any problem with that, so they made a deal. When he left the shop, he was wondering if Marlene thought poorly of him. However, he was sure that he could rely on her for the potions. He giggled and blushed at the idea of Sifa thanking him for the potions and confessing her love to him. Meanwhile, Dennis was telling Marlene that she should have asked him to sell them more goods since the IOM was tremendously valuable. Marlene didn't do that because she thought she had to trade Dennis for that. While making the potion, Marlene was sure that the IOM's quality was on some other levels and wondered where he got those. When the potion was done, it was not a high-grade potion, it was an extraordinary potion, and she could not let that leave the shop like that and would have to dilute it. After a while, Sina came to her brother to tell him that she got a whole bunch of healing potions at a good price. When she mentioned that Sifa was also pleased and wanted to thank him somehow, Jayo thought about going on a date with her. Sina said that it was not all great since they would be able to go on longer adventures now, and Jayo told her to not cause Sifa any trouble with her laziness. She objected by saying she played an active role in the dungeon, but he didn't believe her since she was a newbie. In the next scene, Sina and the girls were in the dungeon fighting with a big monster. While Sifa was covering Sina, she managed to defeat the monster like it was nothing. Annie and Sifa praised her, but it was also thanks to their gift as well. Sifa mentioned that it was also thanks to Gio. If they did not have any healing potions, it would be risky to keep going deeper into the dungeon. While they were talking about Gio, Annie sensed 2 creatures and their breathing was ragged and weak. She figured that it was probably 2 injured people, so they ran towards them. Annie was right. 2 heavily injured adventurers were lying on the floor, having a hard time to breathe. Annie suggested giving them the healing potions, and while Sina was worrying if it would be enough, a bunch of monsters appeared behind her. Annie apologized for getting distracted, and Sina told them to not worry about it and to take care of the wounded. There were 3 bears, so fighting with them while protecting others would be tough. Before she could attack the bears, Annie noticed that there were creatures approaching. Multiple signatures were coming from the direction of the monsters. Sina thought more enemies were coming, but it was a bunch of adventurers using arrows to defeat the bears. Sina was about to attack one of the bears, but a woman told her to leave that one to her. She then attacked the last bear and successfully managed to beat it. The woman who helped Sina was no other than Eliza. Annie and Sifa were happy to see her. When she checked the injured people, she realized that it would take several mid-grade potions to heal them. A man in Eliza's party approached and gave his potions as well. Eliza thought even the high-grade potions might not be enough to heal them, but the moment Annie used the potion she had, the heavy wounds healed in a few seconds, and the girl opened her eyes feeling well. Everyone was shocked that their wounds were fully healed. The healed girls thanked them with gratitude, and Eliza asked if they were separated from their friends, they could come along with them. The girls accepted her offer, and Sifa told her that they were going to keep exploring for a while longer. Before Eliza left, she stated that the potions they used on the girls were extraordinary grade potions and asked where did they get them from. When they said it was an apothecary named Marlene, she complimented her skills and left the dungeon. Sina thought she was such a cool woman. Sifa mentioned that she had worked with Eliza once on a quest. Annie said that B-rank adventurers never disappoint and they were as reliable as ever. However, for some reason, Elise often changed parties. Furthermore, the members were always skilled warriors. Leaving that aside, Sina wanted to talk about the potion for a second. Bed on its abnormal efficacy, which allowed it to fully heal fatal wounds, it certainly was not merely a high-grade potion. It was the first time they have heard of the extraordinary grade. There was only one reason for that Annie could think of. It was definitely due to Gio's home garden. After a few days, Gio went to the apothecary to sell some more IWM and Dennis welcomed him. She said that they had become famous for their highly effective potions and it was all thanks to his IWM. He also heard that from Sina as well. He was only hoping to please Sifa, so he couldn't believe it ended up being that useful to others. He mentioned that he was happy about that, so he ended up bringing over a ton more. Meanwhile, Marlene was staring at him. Dennis told her that Gio brought more IWM and she thanked him. With a little smile on her face, she said that many people have been saved thanks to his IM. Even though she had to sell a diluted version, it was still insanely effective. Gio said that he only collected the IWM and there was no way he could have mixed the potion. Dennis backed him up and said that Marlene was incredible. She was flattered by his words and thanked Gio again. He promised to bring more IWM soon and returned home. Sina came and brought lots of magic stones. She explained that thanks to his healing potion, they were able to make a lot of progress in the dungeon. He never imagined IM would be that beneficial while using the magic stones. With new magic stones, he got so many new skills and new crops. He then noticed that there was something named Monster Egg. He was curious and decided to grow one. It was listed as small, but it was actually pretty big. Since it was an egg, it meant that a monster might hatch from it. He wondered if he could raise a baby monster and if it would be okay for him. It grew readily as usual, but he was still worried. Then Liruka came to pick up the harvest. He left the egg in the garden and went to her. Liruka asked if the famous potions were somehow related to him, and he approved her. While looking at the valuable herbs, Gio asked if she ever dealt with monsters. She explained that she had done a lot of trade in processed goods and ingredients procured from defeated monsters. He then asked about living with monsters, and apparently she had never seen anything like that. However, selling living monsters was relatively rare. Monsters were fundamentally feral and couldn't coexist with humans. There were not any people who wanted to raise and live with monsters like that, so there was no market for them. Gio felt a little nervous after hearing those, and when she left, he was wondering if he could defeat a baby monster in an emergency event. He did not look very confident about that, and when he decided to let it hatch for now, the egg trembled. Sina came back from her job and ate a good dinner. Gio asked if the adventuring was tough today, and she stated that she fought another monster again. While glaring at the monster egg, Gio asked her if monsters were that ferocious. She said that the adventurers they saved a while ago had their guts ripped out by the monsters that attacked them. Gio was disappointed that humans and monsters could not coexist, but Sina told him that there might be nice monsters like his golems. She wondered if they could become friends with them since he was lonely while she was away on adventures. Gio tried to change the topic by saying even when she is at home, all she does is lays around the house. Gio was not lonely, but his parents had been gone since he was little, and now Sina was an adventurer. The next day he patted the egg and asked if it was doing well, and the egg surprisingly trembled. He was so happy that it answered him. He had made up his mind and decided to hatch that egg and raise the monster. After finishing today's work, he went to check the egg and noticed that the egg was very cold, which was unusual. He figured that if he didn't do something, the baby would die, so he went to warm it up. He wrapped it with a bunch of blankets and the temperature had gone back to what it was before. But he was still a little worried because Sana said she was staying overnight with Sifa and Annie, so he decided to sleep with the egg. Before he fell asleep, he whispered to the egg that it was going to be born safe and sound. The egg cracked and started to hatch. He was panicking about what to do, but the egg hatched successfully and a baby monster that looked like a furry cat was born. It looked like it was feeling weak, so he decided to go to his garden because his garden had milk. He cut the fruit's top and poured it into a cup. The milk was fresh and it had a rich smell. He put the cup in front of it and the baby monster immediately started to drink it. He was glad that the monster was feeling better now. It snuggled next to him and made him pet itself. He was fascinated by its cuteness. He was worried about a lot of different things before, but if it was just a cat, there was no problem with him keeping it as a pet, so he decided to name it. The cat was given the name Milk because it had a fondness for the drink. When Sina came back from the dungeon, she saw the cat and Geo explained that he had decided to adopt it. She seemed to like Milk, and Geo decided to keep the fact that it hatched from a monster egg a secret for now. When she tried to pet Milk, it bit her fingers. Geo defended it by saying it was because she rudely tried petting its head. Seeing him worrying more about the cat than her, she felt jealous. She tried to scold Milk by saying she was his only little sister, but Milk was a male. Geo tried to change the topic and told her that he made dinner for both of them. She wanted to try the milk he got from the home garden and seemed to like it. It was amazing for him that he could harvest this good, but he never thought he could get a new family member from it. In the next day, while on his way to Marlene's shop, he thought about how his family had gotten bigger. He felt even more satisfied with cultivating and delivering things. This time, instead of just bringing AWAM, he brought some extra herbs for them. The variety of herbs surprised them, and he asked if any of them would be useful. Marlene said that all of them were rare and that she could even make an ice-cold potion with them. He was curious about what an ice-cold potion was, and they explained that when you drink it, your body becomes chilled, and you gain resistance to fire and heat. Potions have different effects depending on their ingredients. He asked if ice-cold potions would be useful for adventuring, and Marlene stated that if someone used one, they could even challenge the most secluded area in the dungeon, which is named the volcanic area. Meanwhile, at the dungeon, Sina and her party were ahead to the volcanic area. Sina seemed to be very hot from the heat, and Sifa explained that there were several areas all intricately interconnected in that dungeon. Until now, they have been exploring the cave area. But beyond that point lies a volcanic area. The other areas were the forest area, the ruins area, and the underwater area. All 5 areas have completely different environments and animals living in them. The most difficult area was said to be the underwater area. Until now, no one has managed to beat it. This time they were facing the volcanic area. It had the second most severe environment after the underwater area, and few parties have ever challenged it. That area has had almost no conquerors as well. Sina asked about the conquerors, and Annie explained that it was people who had defeated the boss lurking somewhere within the area. Area conquerors could get pretty famous, and there was an exceptional reward for defeating the boss itself. Plus, the resources it drops are pretty rare, so they sell for a high price. Sina wondered if they could beat the boss, and Annie said before thinking about beating the boss, exploring was going to be tough without any heat-resistant equipment, and they can't use water magic either. While they were talking about going home, Sifa took out one of her potions and showed them. They have never seen one that color before. She explained that she got it as a free sample from Marlene, and it was called Ice Cold Potion. If they drink that, they will gain resistance to fire and heat. Apparently, Marlene gave her several for free in exchange for testing their effects in the field. They wondered how Marlene made those potions, and Safi said she got her hands on a precious ingredient called chili grass, which Geo sold to her. They gave it a try and drank the potions. They started to feel the cold inside their body even though they were covered in sweat until a second ago. They rushed to the volcanic area and they didn't feel any heat. Annie felt like the temperature was just right. It seemed that they would be fine even if they got close to the lava. Suddenly, a few monsters approached them, and Annie warned everyone that they were the flame dogs, and they would be stronger than anything they had faced up until now. Sina carefully slashed one of the dogs, and they realized that its flames weakened when she cut it, and it was like she attacked with cold air. They figured that it was an effect of the potion and were amazed by it. Safi also said that the effects last for quite a while. Annie wanted to fully explore the area before word got out to other adventurers, which meant they were going to keep coming there. They could do that as long as they have the ice-cold potion. They decided to conquer the volcanic area. Meanwhile, Geo was gathering up a bunch of chili grass with milk. He hoped that those would be useful to Sifa's adventures. While doing his daily tasks, he realized that he still had some skills and crops he hadn't tried out yet and decided to do that. He noticed something called defensive wall and tried to create one. It made a big fortress that surrounded the house. He thought it was completely weird to have that surrounding a single house, so he wanted it to go back to how it was before. The next skill was called Conceal Garden. When he tried it, nothing seemed to be happening and he moved on to the new crops. As he looked at the crops, he realized that the quality of his crops was leveled up from mid to high. He couldn't even imagine how the high-quality crops would taste since they were already super tasty. Sina was tired from exploring the volcanic area, and she just wanted to get home fast and jump straight into bed. But when she arrived at home, she realized that there was no home or garden left. Geo welcomed her and asked why she was making a huge commotion. She started to ask where their house was and what happened, but Geo didn't seem to understand her. She stated that there was nothing there, and he realized that his skill was allowing him to make their home invisible to everyone but him. He showed her the house and explained that he was just trying out his gift skills. However, if their house keeps appearing and disappearing out of nowhere, the neighbors would be pretty confused, so it would be better to not use that one. Sina was relieved and said that she was so tired and thought she was going to have no choice but to sleep outside. He did notice that she seemed pretty tired. She blamed him because he was the one who sold more herbs to Marlene, and because of that, she would have to go to the volcanic area a bunch for the next while. The fact that his little sister was working out made him think about something. He offered to have a feast after reaching the next stage of her adventure. That sounded great and she wanted to have a feast right now, but he told her to not be too hasty. He wanted to invite Sifa and Annie if he was going all out. Besides, he had an ace up his sleeve, so he would need some time to prepare. After a few tough days at the dungeon, they faced the boss of the volcanic area, Volcano. Sina seemed to be intimidated by him. Sifa mentioned that there was no record of his defeat in recent years. Without a doubt, he would be the strongest enemy they had ever faced. However, they should be able to beat him as they are now. With Sina at the center of their strategy, they would join forces to take him down together. They decided to drink the ice-cold potions before attacking him just in case. After they all got ready, Sina started to attack the monster without any hesitation. The volcano roared towards her with his fiery breath, and it was very close to her. Sifa noticed that the volcano was quite wary of Sina, which made her wonder if he could sense her real strength. If the boss was wary of fighting head-on, then even Sina wouldn't be able to easily get close to him. To make up for that, Annie concealed her presence completely. While Sina and Sifa were in front of him, Annie attacked him behind and made some real damage. The ice-cold potion seemed to be crazy strong. They complemented each other and continued to fight against the volcano. In the next scene, Sifa and her party are at the Adventurers Guild and are greeted by the receptionist Canalia. Canalia asked if she got a new girl in her party and she approved her. Canalia thought Sifa was pretty strong, but it was still hard for her to explore the dungeon, and the new girl didn't seem very strong either. However, her claims were proven wrong when Sifa took out the volcano's scale to report a subjugation. Canalia could not help but scream at her because she couldn't believe that they had actually done it. That was why she got the scale as proof. It definitely belonged to a red lizard man, and it was far larger than what was possible for a normal one of the species. Canalia asked if she got assistance from another party, and Sina said that they killed it all by themselves. Before dispatching a recovery team, Canalia noticed that they would have to get some heat-resistant equipment since it was the volcanic area. Annie told her to not worry about that thanks to the ice-cold potions. Canalia seemed to having a hard time processing all of the information she got from the girls. The group that was sent by Canalia was surprised to see that the potion was really effective. Annie thanked them for helping with the recovery and they started to lead the way. While they were walking, the people doubted that they could defeat the boss because even with that potion and a good leader like Sifa, Volcano was still a big shot with practically no record of defeat. However, Annie pointed somewhere and said the volcano was there and they saw his dead body lying on the floor. It was indeed the volcano and he had barely got a scratch on him, so it was going to be worth a ton after appraisal. One of the adventurers called others to see the clean cut on Volcano's hard scales. They claimed that it had to be Sifa who wounded him like that, but it was not Sifa or Annie. It was the newbie Senna. The adventurers were speechless. After finishing the work for today, Sina brought back so many magic stones to Gio. She told him that she beat some area guy and even got a giant reward. While Gio was patting her, Milk approached and wanted to be petted too. She started to get jealous of Milk. Sina then realized that Milk had grown a lot in just a few days and he was pretty big for a cat. Gio tried to change the topic and offered to level up the garden with those magic stones. After leveling up the garden, he had learned some new skills, and it was now possible to cultivate new crops. Senna mentioned that starting tomorrow she would be taking a little break from adventuring. Gio then offered to invite Sifa and Annie to come over, which meant that it was the time for him to ace up his sleeve and celebrate beating the area whatever guy. He made a big feast with the help of Alicia. Alicia also mentioned that today Lucas was reserved just for them. They would cook up as much as they liked so they could eat as much as they wanted. They cheered their drinks and started to eat the meals. Gio mentioned that he made the hamburger steak with the new high-quality crops he unlocked recently. When they tasted it, they were all paused for a while, which made him worry. He asked if it tasted bad, but it was the opposite. It tasted incredibly good. The food was so good that they couldn't stop eating. They ate so much that Gio had to remade with the mid-quality ingredients. Sifa mentioned that the other meal he made with high-quality crops was so good that it could start some wars. Annie also agreed with her and told him to hide his crops. Sifa then thanked him for that beautiful reward. He said it was the least he could do since they were taking care of his sister, but Sifa and Annie said that Sina did not need anyone to take care of her because she was pretty strong. Annie mentioned that they were able to kill the volcano thanks to Sina. He thought Sina was exaggerating before, but her gift seemed pretty cool. Even though there were things that he could do for them, he was still envious. Sifa stood up and stated that she was also grateful to him because they would not be able to defeat the volcano without his ice-cold potion. They explained that he also had a lot of power too, which was exactly what he needed at that moment. Alicia told him to sit down and she could take care of the rest. Even if he can't go on adventures, it seems that he is part of the party too. They ate everything they could and everyone was so full. Before they split up, Gio asked if everyone was taking a break from adventures and they approved him. Annie was planning to help with the restaurant work and Senna was planning to sleep around at home. Gio wondered what Sifa would do on her break, but hesitated to ask, so he didn't say anything. While they were walking, their ways split up, and Gio told Sifa to take care of herself before they left. However, she held his arm and told him that she wanted to thank him for the food and the potions. Gio's heart started to pound and he started to consider if she actually liked him. Sifa, in a shy manner, asked him if he would like to go out tomorrow. The next day, Gio was getting ready to go on his date with Sifa and Sina asked if he was going somewhere. He patted Milk and told Sina that he might not be back until the end of the day. While walking, he was very happy that he was going out alone with Sifa. They would go to stylish date spots and set up a good ambiance, he thought. When he arrived at their meeting spot, Sifa was waiting for him. He was amazed by her look. He asked where would she like to go, and Sifa told him to leave everything to her since today was to thank him. He was unable to maintain a straight face since he was so delighted to see her organizing a date for him. While thinking today was going to be a great day, Sifa brought him to Marlene's apothecary. Dennis welcomed them and asked if there was something they needed. Sifa explained that they were just looking. Gio noticed that Dennis's face was saying there was no way they would come for a date to a derelict building like that. It was definitely not a date-like place he imagined. Sifa was also just looking at the products silently, and he couldn't figure out what they were doing there together. He was happy to spend some time together, but he also wondered what she was thinking. Sifa noticed that he was looking at her and asked if he was having fun. He approved her and they looked around for a while before they left. The next place was not a date-like place either. Sifa was looking at stuff silently again and she kept asking him if he was having fun. While looking at some armor and tools, he couldn't help but think about if that was actually okay. He had never been on a date before, but he imagined that it usually involved fashionable clothing shops. The shop owner welcomed them and informed them that he just got some new equipment. Sifa tried on 2 new armor. She asked which one looked the best, but it did not seem like he liked it. However, the reason he wasn't looking at her was because there was no safe place to look. He could barely say that she looked best in her usual clothing. Sifa felt embarrassed and her cheeks turned red. Their next station was the Adventurers Guild. Sifa started to show him inside the building and asked if he would like to see the basement, which has a training area. Gio realized that she was very famous among the adventurers. While he was thinking about how lucky he was to go on a date with a B-rank adventurer, they heard a man yelling at someone to concentrate. Everyone around them was training very hard and Sifa was staring at them. Come to think of it, the date was not felt like a date from the beginning and he figured that he was probably the only one who thought it was a date. Sifa wanted to confirm that he was having fun again. He then noticed that some boys were hyping up their friends to be brave and Gio thought he was planning to confess to Sifa, but he asked her to be his partner for training. Sifa hesitated to accept his offer, but Gio stated that he would like to watch, so she went with it. It was the first time he had seen Sifa fight. The boy attacked her with all his might, but she defeated him within a second. People, including Gio, were in shock. He was fascinated by her smooth moves and was glad that he got to see Sifa in adventurer mode. A girl approached her and asked if she would mind training with her too, but she kindly refused by saying she had important plans today. Since they were both hungry, Gio thought they would go to a stylish cafe, but he found himself in front of Lucas. Annie was surprised to see them together. Sifa said they were there to eat. Annie took Gio to the back to ask if they were on a date, and Gio explained that even though Sifa was the one who decided on all the destinations, it really didn't seem like a date. Even so, he had a lot of fun. He had no idea what Sifa was thinking, but he didn't get the feeling it was a date. Annie turned and looked at Sifa sitting there silently. She mentioned that he had still got a long way to go. He was still 100 years early to go on a date with Sifa. Gio felt gloomy after he talked with Annie. He thought Sifa was way out of his league because not only she was older than her, but she was also a talented adventurer. He went back to their table and Sifa asked what he was talking about with Annie. He didn't say anything, but it was obvious that something happened. She asked if he was tired because he seemed deflated and he didn't deny that. She then told him that he would feel better after having some good food. He was surprised at how simple she was thinking, but he was still happy to be with her. Even though it was not a date, he would get to spend time with Sifa. After they ate their meals, Sifa asked if he was feeling better now. Lucas was the best restaurant she knew of, so it was a special place for her. They happened to start speaking at the same time, and Gio told her to go first. She asked if he was unhappy because of her earlier. She stated that she did her best thinking up places, but it seemed like she didn't do a very good job. She wanted him to have a lot of fun since today was meant to thank him for everything, but she didn't know how to get someone else to have fun, so she decided to take him to her favorite places. She thought he would enjoy them too, just like she did. Now that he knew what she was doing this whole time, he felt relieved. She asked him again if he had a good time and he explained that he did and that as long as he was with her, he would have a blast no matter where they went. He realized what he just said, but Sifa smiled at him with a blushed face. He got to see sides of Sifa he had never seen before, and that was enough for today to be a good day. There was one last place she wanted to take him, which was her house. Gio's heart started to pound so hard, thinking she wanted to introduce him to her parents, but he was proven wrong when she said it was because that was one of her favorite places. Before they could come in, they heard someone yelling. It came from the workshop that Sifa's family runs. Sifa's father Billy welcomed them and asked who he was. He introduced himself, and Billy changed his whole attitude and asked if he was on a date with his cute daughter. Sifa told him to leave that aside and asked about what happened. Billy told that they were actually in a real bind right now, and the other men were freaking out too. A bald man appeared asking them if they got his money. Billy asked why he came there. The man's name was Hazia, and he came to check just to be sure, and reminded them that the repayment of the money he lent them was 3 months overdue. While Billy trying to explain that he was going to get him his money, Sifa whispered to others and asked what happened. One of them explained that the merchant who made the order had gone missing. Hazia couldn't help but wonder if his client had run away. While they were talking, Gio was trying to understand what he was after. Billy told him to wait a little longer and he would repay him no matter what. Nevertheless, Hazia was done waiting. Since Billy put up his workshop as collateral, he could close his place down if he can't pay. Billy told him that he would not let him ruin the workshop that has been in his family since his grandfather's time. That looked like a big problem, so he asked if he could give his daughter in exchange for the shop. Before Billy could say anything, Gio stepped up and told him to shut his mouth. Hazia seemed to be annoyed by him and was about to do something to him, but Billy went in his way and told him to go home since there was still more time before the due date. He reminded them that they had 3 days to scrounge up the money and left. One of Billy's workers came and informed him that he checked with the Merchants Guild over and over again, but they did not acknowledge anyone by that name. Billy sat for a second. He apologized to Gio for getting him involved in that mess. He stated that it was okay, and wanted to know what was the current state of affairs. He couldn't exactly say that the shop was flourishing, but they had skilled craftsmen and a good deal of regular customers. However, they had been having trouble with some new customers, and as a result, they were deep in red. One night, he was at his wit's end at a tavern, when a man named Hazia got his attention. At first, he thought he was a good man. Things were looking up after they got that fake merchant's order, but apparently he cut off all contact with them, so he was forced to extend the deadline for repaying the loan. The workers were dissatisfied because of him being way too trusting. Gio sensed something was off there. Rather than trying to swindle him out of his money, he was trying to prevent him from repaying the debt. While he was thinking about what Hazia's intention was, Sifa was thinking about using the reward for defeating an area boss, but 3 days was not enough. Gio asked how much he owed them and wanted to help if it was not too much. However, his debt was 500 gold coins. 500 gold coins in 3 days seemed impossible. Sifa and Gio left the shop and Sifa apologized to him for asking for his help. He promised Sifa that he would do anything in his power to help and went ahead to home. He figured that he might be after Sifa, so he wanted to help them as much as he could. He brainstormed about what he could do to help them in 3 days, but even if he sold his crops, he wouldn't make it in time. He then thought about using Liruka but didn't know where she was. She would come to collect his crops tomorrow morning, but he couldn't afford to wait. He decided to try asking around for her at the Merchants Guild. However, Liruka was an elusive merchant, so even they didn't know her whereabouts. He asked for the tiniest clue to find her, but they didn't have any idea. To his luck, Liruka appeared out of nowhere. He was so happy to see her and he explained the situation to her. It did sound like a pretty serious matter to her. Gio then took out a big piece of gold ore that he grew in his garden. He asked if he sold a bunch of that he could pay off the debt, but that would be pretty difficult. Liruka explained that the country and the lords controlled the mines where gold was extracted. If he were to sell a large amount of it, they would likely suspect him of illegal mining. Gio was disappointed, thinking about what else he could do. She asked if there were any other ores he could grow, and he said there were a whole bunch of them. Since Gio had mithril, an ore that developed in places dense in mana like a dungeon, he could sell those with ease. However, it was a rare metal, so if he sold it as it is, it would be suspicious. Gio didn't know what to do, but Liruka had an idea. She told him to entrust a business dealing to her and trust her. They went to Sifa's father's shop and Liruka introduced herself and stated that she had come to put in an order based on Gio's introduction. Billy told her that they would be closing down today, but she offered to pay before any work was done. She took out a bunch of mithril and Billy was in shock. Liruka explained that she would give that mithril to him and in exchange, she would like to order 200 sets of swords and shields. That kind of order was incredible as they would have enough money. However, Billy became a lot warier than he was before and questioned if she was trying to cheat him. Liruka gets that he might not be able to trust her, but that business transaction was actually entrusted to her by Gio, so she asked if he trusted him. Billy paused for a second and Sifa told him that it was okay and she trusted Gio. Billy recalled the time Gio spoke out for his daughter and accepted her offer. She gave him platinum coins worth more than regular coins. These were used by noblemen and merchants. Billy rushed to talk to Hazia, but he was actually in front of their shop with a bunch of comrades. Billy immediately told Sifa to stay back since those guys might have their eyes on her. Gio backed him up and told her to stay inside the workshop. Hazia told him to give up since he thought he didn't manage to get all the money together. Billy showed him the platinum coins and they were all flabbergasted. He was sure that it was impossible to get that much money and asked who he got it from. Laruka stepped up and him that they just made a deal a little while ago, although she was just the intermediary. Hazia never expected to meet someone who could come up with that amount in just 3 days. He then grinned slyly and told them that he forgot to include the interest. With the interest factored in, he raised the debt to 1,500 gold coins, which was 3 times the original amount. Billy couldn't believe the figure he mentioned. Hazia said it was the real amount, 1,500 gold coins. He said that since coins in his shop wouldn't be worth 1,500 gold, he had no choice but to give his daughter to him. Gio knew that this man was after Sifa, and he turned out to be right. Billy stated that he would get her daughter over his dead body. Hazia stated that they did not want to have to get violent. Gio stood up against him and told him to stop joking around and he would never let him do that. Hazia was already annoyed by him, but hearing him saying those stuff made him even madder. Gio didn't hesitate to say that Sifa was his precious friend. Hazia grabbed him and was about to hit him, but Laruka interrupted him, saying that there was something failed to mention before. The client was actually the lord of that land. Not only Hazia and his companions, but also Billy, Sifa, and Gio were bewildered. Meanwhile, Lord was contemplating the offer Laruka had made to him while sipping his tea in his mansion. Hazia pushed Gio and looked up the crest on the paper, and it was definitely the Lord's. Laruka told him that if he tried to collect unfair payment from that workshop, she was sure that it would reach the Lord's ears, which would be pretty inconvenient for him. Hazia had to accept 500 coins and left the shop. Under the influence of adrenaline and fear, Gio, who had been frozen stiff, let himself drop to the ground once Hazia left. Gio seemed to have left Billy quite surprised. Sifa came, and while he was talking, she hugged him tight. Sifa was grateful to him for saving his father's workshop. Billy then realized that Laruka actually secured an order from the Lord. She was happy to help out because Gio was giving his best. They praised him, but he felt embarrassed since he said something so outrageous right in front of Sifa. He wanted to say something about that, but Sifa told him that she couldn't hear that well. The topic changed again, and Billy thanked him for saving them. Gio was feeling relieved. The usual him wouldn't be able to stand up to such a scary guy like him. He was glad that he could protect Sifa's smile. Meanwhile, Hazia was beside himself with anger. He spent a lot of time preparing, but now his plan was ruined and he couldn't report that to the boss. One of his comrades came and told him that he couldn't find her base of operations no matter how much he looked, but he did find a place she visits regularly. It was a house inhabited by a brother and sister who had just reached the age of maturity, and it seemed the brother was the guy who was with the merchant before. Hazia decided to take Gio captive and use him as bait. Meanwhile, Marlene and Dennis made a new potion. When Dennis asked what kind of effect the potion had, Marlene asked him to try it out. He drank the potion and Marlene asked him to put his face in that water. When he did it, he realized that he could now breathe under the water. That was an aquatic potion made from air flowers, and with that, even if you are underwater, you can still behave as if you were still on land. Gio was the one who brought them those air flowers. Air flowers only bloom several thousand meters above sea level and were quite the rare ingredient. Dennis couldn't help but wonder how he got a hold of that stuff. Marlene was sneaking the water and the bottle he had just drank from. He told her to throw that stuff away, but she wanted to use that as a little treat for herself. While they were arguing, Sifa came into the shop and asked for Dennis and Marlene. They came out of the room and greeted her. Sifa came there because she was getting ready for another adventure. Dennis told her that she was right in time since Marlene had just finished making a new potion. Meanwhile, it was Milk's dinner time at Gio and Sina's home. While he was having dinner, Sina mentioned how big he grew. Gio stated that it was because he had been having a lot more than just milk lately. He had grown more than that can account for. Sina said even though he was a cat, he was so big Gio couldn't even carry him around anymore. That was actually because he was a monster, but he didn't think he was dangerous since he was so attached to him. Even though he was growing up, he was still as spoiled as ever. However, when Sina wanted to pet him too, he snapped and growled her. It seemed like he didn't like Sana. Gio then remembered that Sina was about to go out for adventuring today. In the next scene, Sina and her party are at the entrance to the underwater area where no one has ever conquered before. Sifa took out the potion she got from Marlene and they tried out. They dived into the water and the potion was working. They were able to breathe easily. And it was not only the breathe, they could walk easily despite being underwater, and even their clothes weren't wet. Another plus was that Annie's hunter's nose was still working and she sensed a monster closing in. It was a big fish and Sina took out her sword and sliced its head with one attack. Her skill with the sword had not decreased at all and they would be able to conquer that place for sure like that. There was practically no information available about the underwater area, so they decided to map it out. They walked around the area and it was beautiful. Annie mentioned that if the area was not a dungeon, it would be highly profitable as a tourist spot. The underwater area had a bunch of fish even Geo couldn't grow. Suddenly, they encounter the underwater area boss. Meanwhile, at Geo's house, Hazia and his comrades were preparing to attack him. Since Sina wasn't at home today, it was the perfect chance. They broke the door and went inside. Milk immediately got up and started growling. When Geo and Milk saw them, Milk jumped on the intruders, biting them. One of the intruders drew a knife, but Milk dodged the swings. They couldn't handle him and got out of the house. Geo was speechless. He asked Milk if he was okay and he seemed to have no injuries. He decided to hide in the yard. They were still looking for him in the yard, so golems appeared. They thought there were only a couple of them, but the other golems appeared too, and they lost count. Hazia showed up and cut one of the golems. The others told him that no matter how many they defeated, they kept popping up from the soil. He didn't listen to anyone and cut golems like it was nothing. When he says Geo and Milk trying to run away, he states that no matter how many of those golems he made, it was useless. When he was about to follow Geo, an enormous golem appeared and he had to take out his gun. The gigantic golems were surrounding him and he couldn't do anything. Apparently, while Geo was thinking about how he stops him, he realized that he could make a Mega Guardian. He created a few of them and ordered them to drive him away. The gigantic golems attacked Hazia and his comrades barely left the yard. Geo was relieved and pet Milk's head. Meanwhile, at the underwater area, Annie was in denial. Sifa asked if they could beat it. Sina was sure they could, and it seemed like she wanted to have a taste of it too. They decided to map the area for a while before heading home, and they would avoid fighting the boss for now. Since it was too big, they would know immediately when it was getting close. Come to think of it, the monster's presence was really odd to Annie, but she didn't say anything since she could be imagining things. They continued to walk around in the area for a while and then decided to head back to the surface. Sifa told them to not let their guard down on the return trip. When they were about to return to the surface, the boss was right in front of them. Annie couldn't even sense it with her hunter's nose. They started to run away, but it was following them. When they were about to swallow it, Sifa stated that it doesn't feel very intimidating like the volcano. She used her Empress's authority skill, which was a gift that weakens enemies. But the stronger the enemy, the less effective it was. They thought that skill wouldn't be as effective as normal, but its body started to break apart. As Sifa thought, it wasn't a single massive fish, it was a school of small fish. That was why its presence was so weak that Annie couldn't sense it. Annie and Sina were relieved and thought it was all just a deceptive show, but Sifa warned them. There was probably a fish within the mass that was leading others. They needed to finish them all at once. Sifa provided support and Sina cut the fish one by one. It looked like the Empress's authority put them at a disadvantage since their movements had become fairly sluggish. Suddenly, the massive school of fish started to rush at them, making Sifa unable to maintain her gift. The school of fish continued to attack them in a coordinated manner, and it was clear that they would be in real danger if this kept up. Sina noticed a particular fish in the school and swiftly severed it with a single motion. After cutting the fish, the school stopped attacking. Sina showed them the fish she had killed and told them that the others had gone after she killed it. Sifa was certain that when she saw the fish, it was the leader controlling the others. They wondered how Sina had managed to spot and kill it among so many fish, and Sina instinctively said she noticed and killed it. They headed back to the surface and returned to the Adventurers Guild. Cornelia welcomed them and told Sifa that it was the perfect timing. She informed them that someone heard about Sifa defeating the volcano and was very interested in meeting with her in the future, but Sifa told her that they conquered the underwater area too. Cornelia couldn't believe how good they were at their job. Now that they defeat the underwater boss too, they would probably get an extra warm reception, Cornelia said. The girls didn't understand what she was saying, so she informed them that the person who wanted to meet with them was the Lord or Arcel. The girls looked at each other in a state of bewilderment due to the shock they had just experienced. Cornelia reiterated that the Lord had invited them to his castle. Sina wondered aloud about how important Lord must be and whether Sifa or Annie had ever met him before. But for commoners like them, they were so far out of reach they might as well be a cloud. Cornelia mentioned that the volcanic area had become a popular exploration spot. It seemed that the region's economy was blooming thanks to the influx of precious raw materials. It was the first time Lord had ever reached out to such young adventurers. Sifa mentioned that it was thanks to the apothecary that created the ice-cold potion. Cornelia said that she was contacted as well. When Sina was about to mention his brother's garden, Annie stopped her and told her that Geo's garden was a secret. Cornelia told them to go to the castle at noon 5 days from now. That wouldn't be a problem for them since they would be taking a break since they conquered the underwater area. They split up, and while on her way to home, Sina thought she would take it easy and make Geo spoil her. Meanwhile, Geo was at home thinking about what happened earlier. Nothing had happened since the incident, but he hasn't been able to relax. He got so nervous by the fact that they might come back to attack him again. Suddenly, he realized that Sina was late and started to worry about her. The door unlocked and Milk started to run to the front door. Sina was there trying to understand what was wrong with Milk. Gio embraced Milk and told him that it was just Sina and not an enemy. Hearing the word enemy, Sina asked if something happened. He explained that situation and she was furious. He stated that he was okay and didn't hurt, but they couldn't sleep soundly since they didn't know when they would come back. Sina wondered the people who attacked him, and he told her that the leader was a boorish bald guy with hard features and tattoos. He was skilled with the sword too. The normal golems were no match for him. Sina didn't seem to be scared by anything he said since she could fight. Unlike her brother, she was as laid back as ever. Sina mentioned that she would be going to meet the Lord soon, which made Gio shocked. After dinner, Gio took the magic stone Sina brought home and strengthened the garden again. He remembered her words and knew that he had to do everything he could to make sure she didn't overdo it. The mega golems were strong, but it was hard to use them during the day. He used the magic stones and was hoping to get a skill that made him able to create an invisible wall. He then noticed that he didn't use one of his skills called Travel Between Gardens, but when he tried to use it, he got a notification that said he could not travel between gardens at that time. He used the Traveling Garden skill, and the land literally moved. The voice asked him if he would like to move the garden and he wanted it just a little. There was no way he could move the land to get away from them. That would stand out even more than the mega golems. He then checked the new crops he could cultivate, but it was all flowers. He was feeling quite drained. Milk and Golem tried to cheer him up. He stood up and told them that if something happened, they would all work together again and he was counting on them. But for now, he couldn't afford to be scared because he had to protect Sina. It was now time for Sina to get up, but when he came into her room, he realized that the door was not locked, and she wasn't in her room. Meanwhile, Hazia was seething with anger as he contemplated the people who had mocked him. Not only was he demoted from management, but even his subordinates double-crossed him. Now that he had been tossed out of the organization, his life was in danger. He was now secretly watching Gio's house, but he couldn't walk into that house carelessly. Then he saw Sina. He decided to use her to lure Gio. While she was walking in an empty alley, he approached her and told her to be quiet if she didn't want to die. Sina, in a scary manner, asked him if he was the guy who attacked his brother. Hazia shuddered but tried to hide it. He told her to listen to him obediently, but she stated that she didn't want to do that. He then tried to scare her with his sword, but she thought he was the one who needed to realize the position he was in. In 1 second, Sina cut his arm and his sword was on the floor. He didn't even understand what just happened. Sina told him that scaring her brother so much was inexcusable. Hazia began to shiver in terror and tried to stop her, but she refused. She told him not to go close to his brother again. He understood it was a huge mistake to have ever touched those siblings. Gio was roaming around worried about her when she arrived home. She told him she met that bald guy, and he pledged never to come near him again. Gio was taken aback. He wanted to make sure her little sister wasn't in any danger, which she wasn't. He felt relieved, and Sina told him that he could now relax and she was going to sleep a ton too. Before she went to sleep, Gio patted her head and thanked her. After a few days, Gio woke her up in a hurry since it was the day they were going to Lord's castle. At the castle, the girls were greeted by the Lord's butler. They were all awestruck by the sheer size and grandeur of the place. As they walked, their minds were filled with questions about the kind of person the Lord might be. The Lord had taken over a few years ago and Sifa had something important she wanted to discuss. However, the most anxious among them was Marlene, who kept muttering under her breath, questioning her presence there. The others reminded her that the Lord had recognized her significant contributions, but Marlene was only interested in seeing Dennis. As she tried to explain how much Dennis meant to her, the girls paid little attention and continued to follow the butler. Upon arriving at the dining room, they were greeted by a striking woman who introduced herself as Lord Elizabeth Arsel. She welcomed them warmly. Sina couldn't hold back her admiration, commenting on how beautiful Lord Elizabeth was, creating a sweet, lighthearted moment. On the other hand, Sifa asked if they had met before. Lord Elizabeth confirmed that they had crossed paths just a few days earlier and expressed her pleasure in finally meeting the renowned apothecary she had heard so much about. Suddenly, the girls had a big realization that the Lord was actually the adventurer they met in the dungeon, Eliza. Sina was shocked and wondered what the meaning of this was. Elizabeth explained that if a lord does nothing but management work, their body will weaken, so sometimes she likes to stay active as the adventurer called Eliza. Her butler couldn't help but comment that he had never heard of a Viscountess Lord adventuring. Elizabeth giggled and mentioned that it was good for their knights to have real-life combat training too. Annie and Sina figured that her party members were knights from the castle taking turns. Sifa asked if she was a B-rank adventurer, and she responded that in his late teens, she ran away from home and traveled the world. It was during that time she was promoted to B rank. However, 5 years ago, at the age of 30, her older brother passed away. She wanted to continue being an adventurer, but she had no choice but to return home and take over the lordship. The girls were listening to her amazed, but she didn't want to bore them. She stated that the reason why she invited them here was because they had contributed greatly to the economic growth of the territory with their tremendous accomplishments in the dungeon, and she wanted to thank them for that. They were all honored to be part of this. Elizabeth also heard they conquered the underwater area the other day and wanted them to tell her the whole heroic saga in detail over lunch. With her one clap, the butlers and maidens filled the table with delicious food. They couldn't believe they got to taste the castle's food, so their mouths watered while looking at the food. Elizabeth stated that her first-class chefs put their heart and soul into this meal, so they could have as much as they liked. Sina couldn't stop herself from expressing how delicious the food was in every bite. Sifa started with the soup, and she liked it. Annie also loved the food while Marlene was still missing Dennis. Suddenly everyone stopped because these ingredients' freshness and rich flavor reminded them of Gio's food. Elizabeth noticed their reaction and asked if something was wrong. Annie explained that the meal had been skillfully prepared, but she was thinking how the ingredients themselves were incredible. Elizabeth responded that she bought special ingredients from a puppet merchant. When she mentioned that she wouldn't tell her where she gets her products from, all of them thought about Gio. Sifa couldn't believe Gio's crops had even reached the Lord. Sina wished that Gio could have been praised by the Lord too. They continued eating the food until every plate was empty. While they were drinking their teas, Elizabeth said she wanted to give them a reward based on their achievements up till now. Sina thought they were just having a meal with her as a reward, and they couldn't think of something to want from her. The butler entered the room meanwhile and informed Elizabeth that Liruka was there. She said that she was in the middle of entertaining guests so he should ask her what she needed, and told her today wasn't a good time. Butler stated that she was acquainted with her guests. Elizabeth then asked if they knew a merchant named Liruka Lyria, and Sina immediately recognized her name. Elizabeth told the butler to send her in. In the meantime, Sifa stood up and bowed to Elizabeth. Elizabeth was puzzled and asked what she was doing all of a sudden. Sifa stated that she saved her father's smithy a while ago and thanked her. Elizabeth seemed confused, so she explained that she placed an order for the production of mithril weapons using Liruka as the intermediary. Elizabeth figured it out now, and her face glowed up when she learned that those were made by her father. She said that it was just a purchase she agreed to go along with, but they were delivered just the other day and the quality left nothing to be desired, so she was completely satisfied with the products. She was ecstatic to get her hands on some mithril weapons for so cheap. When she asked how they procured that much mithril, she said that Liruka provided it. Liruka arrived and greeted everyone. Elizabeth mentioned that they were just talking about the mithril weapons she purchased the other day, and she didn't know they were the work of Sifa's family. Elizabeth asked her if she provided the mithril because, in that case, she didn't get paid. Liruka responded that there was no need to worry about that, but Elizabeth started to get suspicious as she said the same thing about the produce too. The girls started to think about Gio again when she said that. When they all looked at Liruka, she winked and shushed them. They were all shocked that Gio could even produce mithril in his garden. Elizabeth decided to change the subject and asked why she was here today. She stated that she heard Elizabeth invite those girls over and asked them if they decided on the reward they would like. When they said no, she asked if they could listen to her idea. She started to whisper, but to only Sina, Annie, and Sifa. Elizabeth watched them, wondering what she was putting in their heads, while Marlene felt excluded. It seemed that their talk was over and everyone approved Liruka's idea. They turned to Elizabeth and revealed what they wanted as their reward. Meanwhile, Gio was eating lunch while wondering what kind of food they were being served at the castle. He was almost sure it was a feast the likes of which a commoner like him had never seen before, and it was way different than this sloppy stir-fired food he prepared for himself. But the thing was that even his sloppy stir-fired food was super tasty. While eating, he could only think about the invitation the girls got. It was also impressive that Sifa was promoted to B rank at that age, and he felt like Sifa was gradually getting further from her reach. After eating his lunch, it was time for him to do some work in the garden. He gathered the stuff he was going to send to Lucas, and once he could harvest it, he was going to start growing the stuff he would turn over to Liruka. He wanted to grow more herbs too, but he didn't have the space for it right now. While he was thinking about that, he heard Liruka and Annie's voice. He had been keeping Milk a secret from everyone, so he told him to go hide in the garden for a while and went to greet everyone. The girls and Liruka were there, and Sifa apologized for showing up late. Gio was more than happy to see her. He asked what was going on as they were supposed to be in the castle with the Lord. They explained to him that they were given the rights to some land by the Lord. It was a useless land no one lived on, and it was their reward. When he asked what they were going to do, Sina told him that they were giving it to him. They wanted him to use it to expand his garden. Gio was shocked by this sudden favor. Liruka mentioned that she proposed it and everyone else agreed. He asked if they didn't want anything and wondered why they would ask something like that. Sifa explained that this was all thanks to him. He didn't just help with their adventure, he also saved her father's shop and Annie's sister's restaurant. They wanted to thank him for that. Gio started sweating and trembling because he was still uneasy about this big reward. To stop him from having unnecessary thoughts, Annie told him that his garden's secretive achievements couldn't be made public, and he deserved a reward. This was a show of everyone's consideration, so Lyrica told him to just accept it happily. Sina told him that even though his garden was a secret, he was incredible too. Gio was surprised at first, but then became so happy and was glad to accept the gift. With each level, the possible size of the garden kept increasing as well, so having a larger area would be handy for him. Suddenly, Milk appeared in the middle of the room and meowed to them. Liruka panicked because she didn't expect a snow panther to stand in the middle of the room like that. Sifa was about to take out her sword, but Gio stopped them by explaining that he was his pet named Milk. While snuggling each other, Gio showed them that he wasn't dangerous. Sina did think he was too big for a cat. Liruka asked where he got that from. He finally revealed that he could grow monster eggs with home garden skills. In the next scene, they were on their way to see the land they gifted to Gio while discussing his skill of producing monsters. Sifa comforted everyone that Gio wouldn't use his skill for something bad. Liruka reminded him to take even more precautions so that no one finds out about the garden. The land Elizabeth prepared for them was outside of the city, so they passed the city gate. In exchange for no one living here, it was crawling with monsters, which made him feel nervous. Sina told him to not worry about it as they were escorting him. It was a bit of a walk, so it was going to be quite a large area. Gio genuinely wondered what the land everyone got for him was like. After a long walk, they arrived at a place that looked like a cursed forest. In the next scene, Elizabeth is doing some paperwork in her castle. As she wasn't really happy about the work, her butler reminded her that it was because business transactions and territorial contracts had been increasing as of late. She knew this was a good thing, but she still wanted to go to dungeons. The butler then informed her that there was something he had to report. He said that according to the territory troops' investigation, the whole area had become an empty lot. They said there wasn't a trace of any of the vegetation that should have been growing there, or monsters that should have been living there. Furthermore, whenever they got closer, they were obstructed by an invisible wall. Elizabeth was shocked and wondered what all this meant. They were still unsure of all the details, but it was likely that someone had built an advanced barrier there. The reason Elizabeth selected that place for their reward was because she wouldn't have to worry about backlash from her retainers or subjects, and because she wanted to put those girls to the test. She couldn't believe they managed to do something like that in such a short amount of time. If they were up to something dangerous, then it would be her responsibility to protect her domain. However, Liruka was as cunning as she was trustworthy, and she didn't think Sifa and her friends were the type of people to harm the domain. She decided to wait and see what they do for now and ordered him to keep monitoring the area. As she was about to return to the paperwork, one of her workers slammed open the door and informed her that there was a stampede coming straight for the city. Meanwhile, Gio was in his land, absorbing the monsters. It seemed that he had killed all the monsters in the area and also reached level 31. Ever since he had surpassed level 30, the garden space limit had been displaying this odd symbol, but he didn't know what it meant. He also got more crops and learned about the castle wall generator, which was derived from the defensive wall generator. He wondered if that meant he could make even bigger walls now. It was confirmed that he could do that after trying out the skill. The wall might be even better than Arcel's walls, but since they were pretty unnecessary for a garden, he put them away. After he finished his job in the area, he started to walk home because it was time for him to harvest everything in the first garden before long. While walking home, he noticed people running away from something in a hurry. When he asked a guard, he told him that there was a stampede coming right for the city. The soldiers were getting ready to intercept it, but it seemed to be a fairly large pack of animals. It was possible even the confines of the city could be in danger. It seemed like a pretty serious situation, so Gio took Milk and decided to go home. He remembered that Sina and the others just left town to go on an adventure. He was comfortable because if it got too dangerous, they could just teleport to the second garden. He decided to climb on a mega golem and check out the situation. He was shocked by the number of monsters he saw coming right into the city. There must be more than 1,000 monsters. Elizabeth was also there, ordering the knights to get into position quickly. The knights sent a summons to the guild, but it seemed like most of them were off exploring the dungeon, so they wouldn't be able to help. Establishing conquest methods for the volcanic and underwater areas had backfired on them with this poor timing. Not everyone was pessimistic though. 200 of their soldiers were equipped with the mithril weapons and armor that she ordered and were fighting like monsters. They didn't hold anything back when the monsters arrived at the gate. Elizabeth watched her soldiers fighting off with the monsters like true heroes. The shields and armor were so high quality that the soldiers got the least damage they could get. Seeing how great the armor was, they became even higher and continued to fight. Additionally, the potions Elizabeth purchased were also with them. The group in the back has caught up and their numbers have increased. The captain told the wounded soldiers to withdraw and the others to come forward. One of them was injured so badly that the wound had even reached the bone. This was a fatal wound, so his friend didn't think a mid-grade potion could heal, but it was better than not trying. While praying that it would work, the soldier made him drink the potion and suddenly the wound was healed and he was saved. They were all shocked by the mid-grade potion's effect on the deadly wounds. Meanwhile, Marlene was nervous and overwhelmed by the crowd in the shelter. Suddenly, Dennis heard a little girl crying because she fell while they were running, and he healed her knees with a few drops of potion. The girl was so happy and this made him happy too. But he was shocked when she called him Miss Maid and Marlene Miss Apothecary. Dennis once again reminded Marlene that he didn't want to go to the shelter dressed like that. Alicia was also there handing people free water and food to calm them down. She then saw Billy, Sifa's father, and greeted him. They talked about the mess in the city and Sifa. Alicia mentioned that besides Sifa and the girls, she hasn't seen Gio anywhere either. Billy tried to think positively and assumed that he was just in another shelter. Alicia asked if he thought the town would be okay, but he had no idea. All they could do was pray and hope that the armor and weapons he sent to the castle would come in handy. Elizabeth was still watching the battle from the fortress. She wasn't sure whether they would be able to hold out if the whole pack started approaching at once. Powerful individuals with different presences arrived. They were Battle Leo, Blood Elephant, and Killer Scorpion. All of them were A-rank highly dangerous monsters, so she wasn't sure if the troops could defeat them all by themselves. The Battle Leo came right at the soldiers and was very dangerous. Before it could cause damage, Elizabeth couldn't stand there and watch, and she joined the soldiers on the battlefield. She warned them to be careful. The soldiers asked her to stay back, but she said that she was fully aware of that but couldn't just stand back and watch anymore. The Blood Elephant suddenly charged against the wall and tried to break down the gate. Elizabeth didn't know what she was going to do because at this rate the monsters were going to flood into the city. Gio was watching them and it looked like it was a matter of time before the monsters broke in. He couldn't believe all he could do was watch as the city he grew up in was being destroyed. Plus, with a giant horde like that, the shelters might not come out unscathed. He decided that there was still something he could do. He was going to travel between gardens to the second garden. Meanwhile, in the dungeon, Sina suddenly paused, sensing something unusual. When Sifa asked what was wrong, Sina mentioned she felt a tremor. Deciding to investigate further, they pressed on deeper into the dungeon. At the same time, Gio was attempting to scale the wall of his garden. Once he managed to climb it, he spotted a stampede heading toward the west gate. Though it was a bad time for the soldiers to notice his hidden garden, that wasn't his main concern at the moment. He quickly deactivated his garden's concealment ability, wondering if he could conceal himself as well. The system notified him that the garden's concealment had been turned off and that a portion of it was hidden. That would have to do for now. Despite the soldiers' valiant efforts to hold their ground, they couldn't prevent a massive boar from crashing through the gate. Their formation was crumbling, but they refused to give up, fighting to take down as many monsters as they could. Among them, Elizabeth fought fiercely, giving her all. The monsters were relentless, and it was becoming clear that they wouldn't be able to hold them off much longer. Suddenly, a confused voice rang out from one of the soldiers on the wall. Alarmed, Elizabeth asked if more monsters were approaching. The soldier, stunned, reported that a wall was moving toward them with tremendous speed. Both Elizabeth and the soldiers were bewildered. How could a wall be advancing like that? Unsure whether it was an enemy or an ally, Elizabeth tried to assess the situation. To their surprise, the wall spoke, ordering them to move out of the way. Keeping her composure, Elizabeth assumed it was an ally and immediately commanded her troops to withdraw. As the soldiers began to retreat, Gio noticed they had received the message. Now his focus turned to the massive horde of monsters. Before they could breach the gate, he needed to act quickly. Using all his speed, Gio created a defensive wall, trapping the monsters between two barriers and just managed to prevent the walls from colliding. Elizabeth stood in shock as a soldier reported that the charge had wiped out nearly half of the monsters. The troops erupted in cheers, and Elizabeth felt a wave of relief. However, she quickly realized that the wall had grown even taller than before. On the other side of the wall, Gio exhaled, equally relieved. With the danger seemingly over, the wall began to shrink before eventually vanishing. But amidst the momentary calm, Elizabeth spotted a lingering threat. The elephant was still alive. Elephant was a tenacious one, though they were a bit relieved as the gate was closed by Gio's wall. Suddenly, the monster started hitting the wall with its body. Gio decided to let it come inside and snapped his fingers. The elephant roared inside the wall and encountered two golemas. The mega golems defeated the monster with ease. Gio then decided to lure all the monsters that survived the garden tackle in here too. As the golems were killing the monsters one by one, Elizabeth and the others were trying to figure out what was going on. Seeing giant golems appear and killing the monsters like that confused them even more. After a few minutes, they had mostly been taken care of. It seemed there were a bunch of strong monsters, but the mega golems mopped the floor with them, as expected. He was glad everything worked out and thought everything was over. But suddenly, Milk got angry and started roaring at something. From the dust, an Atlas appeared. The soldiers were getting nervous because this was a higher-ranking variant of Cyclops. It was at least 20 meters and there was no way they could beat this thing. Powerful monsters could agitate other monsters, causing them to attack cities. So Elizabeth figured out that this monster was the cause of the stampede. Even Geo was nervous now because he had no idea about how to deal with a monster that massive. He decided to beef up the defense of his wall, but the monster destroyed everything with his hands. Golems tried to attack it, but it held them like dolls and killed them with ease. It was clear that they were no match for it. Suddenly, the elephant noticed Geo and charged straight at him. Geo knew he needed to escape using his travel between gardens skill, but if he fled, the creature would devastate the city. Torn between self-preservation and saving the city, he struggled to focus on his survival, trying to convince himself there was nothing else he could do. Just then, the system asked if he wanted to absorb the monsters. At first, Geo dismissed the idea, thinking they didn't have time, but then inspiration struck. He decided to give it a try with the plan to flee if it failed. The moment Geo began absorbing the monsters, he started leveling up and gaining new skills. Among the abilities he acquired was the power to cultivate new crops and, more importantly, a skill related to Mega Guardian creation. Realizing this could be his trump card, he summoned the Giga Guardian. His gamble seemed to pay off, though it would mean nothing if the Guardian couldn't defeat the beast charging at him. Hoping for the best, Geo authorized the creation of the Giga Guardian. When it materialized, Elizabeth was stunned by its sheer size. It was as large as the mighty Atlas itself. The battle began and Geo anxiously cheered on his Giga Guardian, praying that his creation would be strong enough to face the monstrous threat. Everyone was watching the fierce battle between the Atlas and the Golem, amazed. They thought Aesel was a goner for sure, but it seemed like that Golem was on their side. Either way, they didn't have the means to prevent such a colossal monster from invading the city. All they could do was hope the Golem won, and pray that it could protect the city. Golem headbutted Atlas and knocked it to the ground with its fists when Atlas lost his balance. Everyone was cheering for the Golem, but Atlas got mad and charged toward Golem and changed the situation. Atlas didn't stop until the Golem was unable to move. The soldiers lost their hope and were sure they were done for. Elizabeth noticed something and told them that it wasn't over yet. As the beast turned its back, a whole new Golem appeared and made a massive attack. Geo grinned at the fact that he could make as many as he wanted. He created lots of Golems that were enough to surround Atlas. They all attacked simultaneously and defeated the beast with ease. To check if it was dead, one of the Golems poked its cheek and it didn't move. The soldiers who were watching all this with an open mouth started celebrating their win. Elizabeth couldn't believe that the stampede had been wiped out and even the leader, the Atlas, was dead. It was all thanks to the wall and Golems. She thought it was safe to assume they were on their side, but she was still questioning why they were helping them. Golems could be naturally occurring or artificially created to protect ruins or treasures, but she didn't know who in the world had enough mana to create golems as powerful as those. Her thoughts stopped when the wall started moving again. As they were debating over whether they should pursue it or not, the wall and golems disappeared like they were never there. Before they check out Atlas and the others, Elizabeth decides to assess the damage. The direction that the wall came from and went back towards was the area that she gave to the girls as their reward, but she didn't think they could help them like that. Back to the area, Geo deactivated the traveling mode and left himself on the ground for a moment to process everything. He still couldn't believe a monster like that showed up, and it was lucky he acquired Giga Guardian creation when he did. Milk started to lick his face and play with him. While petting him, he realized how reckless he was to think he could handle it with a home garden. But of course, even he had some limits and he was very tired, so he decided to hurry home and have a good long rest. The next morning, the town was turning back to its usual self. People were talking about how the city made it out scot-free, and the only damage was the west gate. Geo looked around and was happy that the city and all the residents were safe and sound. When he arrived at Alicia's shop, she started flirting with him as usual. She said that she was so happy to see him okay and she was worried sick. She asked to confirm if he wasn't at the church shelter yesterday. Geo tried not to panic and responded that he had gone to a different shelter. He then mentioned that he brought a delivery of ingredients as usual. Alicia said he didn't have to do that so soon after what happened, but he was in the habit of harvesting every morning, so he harvested a ton of fresh eggs. When Alicia learned that he hadn't had any breakfast yet, she asked if there was anything he wanted to eat and it was her treat. Geo tried to refuse, but Alicia forced him to sit and told him that it was okay. Since he was always helping her out, she wanted to thank him again. Geo then decided to take her up on the offer. After 10 minutes, Gio's order was ready. She prepared a delicious-looking pancake for him. In the next scene, Gio showed Liruka the atlas and the new field. She was shocked and speechless. Gio explained that that was from yesterday's stampede. She seemed clueless about the stampede as she was visiting the next town yesterday. Gio simply explained what happened and then asked what he should do with the Atlas's raw materials. Liruka mentioned that Atlas's bones, skin, and teeth were big, strong, and in high demand. She wanted to buy it from him and take care of the processing too. However, no matter what he did, she told him not to look while she was in the middle of processing. She said that it was extremely grotesque. She would be done in an hour, so Gio decided to leave her alone and go home for the time being. He thanked her and then transported to home. Liruka sighed after that and tried to process this situation. She would have never thought that this gift of Gio's would end up being stronger than the Atlas, a plus monster. If it were misused, it could wipe out the whole city or maybe even all of humanity. Home Garden didn't sound as peaceful as it sounded before, but it was lucky that the owner of a gift like this was Gio, and they had got to be careful that no one else could misuse it. She then started processing the carcass. Gio completed his daily tasks for an hour and wondered if she was done with the processing. He wondered if she was still working on it. When he transferred himself to the field, he covered his eyes to not see it until she confirmed that she was finished. He opened his eyes and saw the field as clear as new. Liruka explained that she had stored all the materials in her magic bag. Gio was amazed because there weren't even any bloodstains left over. Liruka gave him the money for the materials minus the processing fee. Gio was shocked by the amount of money he received. After that, Liruka showed him the giant magic stone. Gio asked if she was sure it was okay if he didn't sell this to her as well, and she said it was. Liruka reminded him to let her know whenever he needed help and left the garden. Gio decided to give that magic stone to the garden right away. After using the magic gem, he went up 6 levels all at once and reached level 43. He also learned the skills of remote cultivation, storage, and new crops. He tried out remote cultivation, which made him able to plant crops even if he wasn't in the garden. Storage was a skill that was good for carrying a lot of goods. His new skills seemed like they would come in handy, though they seemed pretty normal compared to what he had learned until now. However, he then admitted that there was nothing normal about any of this. He decided to look at the crops. There were so many kinds now that he was having a hard time wrapping his head around it all. There were so many names he had never even seen before. As he looked at the ones that upgraded, he saw that his monster egg also upgraded to medium. He got milk from a small monster egg, and this made him wonder if that meant if he grew a medium one, an even larger monster would hatch from it. That might not be the best, but even so, he was really curious. He gave himself a moment to think, and then decided to cultivate a medium monster egg. The medium monster egg was a lot bigger than the small one. Milk seemed pretty happy to give the egg and started whirling around it. Gio asked him to keep it warm for him, and he was happy to do that. He was wondering what kind of monster would be born this time. There was also a spectral flower and cursed grass feature he was curious about. That day, Gio went to Marlene's shop. Dennis welcomed him and hoped the uproar with the evacuation a few days ago didn't cause him too much trouble. He responded that he was just glad no one got hurt in the end. Dennis mentioned the mysterious wall and some golems killing all the monsters. He acted like he had no idea and immediately changed the subject to the materials he brought. He showed them and explained that they were some things he harvested and he was wondering if they could be used for ingredients. Dennis said he had seen this in an identification manual before. One of them had large pretty leaves and glistening epidermis that seemed to radiate light, while the other was really creepy. He asked Gio if he knew what they were called. Gio explained that the creepy ones were called cursed grass and the pretty ones were spectral flowers. Dennis couldn't help but gasp when he heard spectral flowers and he seemed shocked. A box dropped on the ground and Marlene appeared. She said that he brought something outrageous once again. From their reaction, Gio thought he did something bad. Marlene asked how much he wanted for that, but since Gio didn't know what they were, he just decided to give them to her. Marlene grabbed the goods and informed them that she was going to be in the mixing room for a while. Gio and Dennis were both shocked by how serious Marlene was, but Dennis told him that this was normal. He opened a book and started explaining to him that spectral flowers were an extremely rare herb used in elixirs. An elixir was a mysterious cure for all medicine. It can heal wounds, and potions don't work on abnormal mental states and even hereditary diseases. It was nearly impossible to find on the market. It's said that if you keep drinking it, you will become immortal. This information shocked Gio. He recalled the time when Annie joked that he would grow fruit that would make you immortal. Dennis continued to read that spectral flowers could only be harvested from places with strong holiness, and only one was discovered every couple of years. That would make elixirs quite valuable. Dennis's voice trembled as he asked how he managed to come across such a mythical herb, but he didn't get a proper answer from Gio. He said that the cursed grass wasn't mentioned in this guide. Gio assumed that Marlene was trying to make an elixir now. Dennis was certain it would be difficult to make, but he was sure Marlene was skilled enough to pull it off. He was right. Marlene was confident enough to make the perfect elixir. Gio returned to his garden and started cultivation. He had moved the cultivation of the rare crops to the second garden, and now he didn't have to worry about people seeing anything and could take care of the monster egg without constraints. Since he seemed to have a bunch of rare herbs he could grow, he decided to do that here. He decided that it would be better to refrain from growing more spectral flowers and cursed grass for now. He couldn't believe he had grown this many of them when only one was discovered every couple of years. In the next scene, it had been a few days since then, and he wondered how Marlene's elixir was coming along. Sina prepared for another adventure. Gio told her not to forget anything and asked if she had all her potions. She said that she stopped by the apothecary and bought some yesterday. Gio asked if she had seen Marlene. She responded that she didn't and she was making some important medicine. When Sina opened the door to head for her new adventure, they saw Dennis at the door. He apologized for the sudden visit. They were surprised to see him in his usual boy clothes as they got used to seeing him in a maid's dress. He was embarrassed to wear those, but they thought it would be okay since it looked good on him, though his general clothes were cute too. Sina had to leave for work and Gio invited Dennis over to have some tea. While drinking their teas, Gio asked if Marlene was still hard at work. He confirmed him and explained that since then, she had been working until late at night every day. It was the first time he had ever seen Marlene this wrapped up in something. Gio was impressed by her dedication. If made correctly, it was a medicine that could help people even more than a potion. Gio and Dennis admitted that she was a weirdo, but she was still a splendid apothecary. But Dennis was worried Marlene's health was going to suffer if she kept up. He wished he could help her with the preparation, but he wasn't knowledgeable enough yet. So he came to discuss other things he might be able to do for her. Gio felt like it was somehow his fault she was in this state too, since he was the one who brought in the spectral flowers. But he knew even less about making medicine than Dennis, so he started to think about what else he could possibly do for her. He then had an idea and suggested making her a midnight snack using those fruits and veggies. Dennis was shocked by the amount of food he had. He said that he grows a bunch of stuff in his garden. He was amazed by how fresh they looked. Gio said that eating good food always refreshes people, and he was sure if he made her a midnight snack, Marlene would be delighted. Dennis then wondered what was in that bag, and he said it was ware flour. He explained that he grew the wheat, and then when it was harvested, it became wheat flour. Dennis decided to make something great with that, and asked if he could borrow his kitchen. Gio said of course and joined him to help. While making the snack, Gio mentioned how kind he was, even though Marlene was always abusing him. He said that even though that was true, he owed Marlene a lot. When he was little, his parents abandoned him, so he grew up in an orphanage. But running the orphanage was tough and he went searching for a job to help out. But he was struggling to find one. That was when Marlene, who was looking for an assistant, called out to him. She thought he would look great in a maid's uniform, and that was how they met. He also explained that he hated wearing the maid's clothes, but the pay was pretty good, so he was bearing with it. Plus, Marlene was serious about making medicine. Many people had gotten better because of her medicine, and he deeply respected her for that. Gio mentioned that if he told Marlene that, it would be like she would die and go to heaven, which was exactly why he would never do that. Back at Marlene's shop, she faced another failure try. Once again, she threw out the potion she made. The quantity was correct, so she thought about adjusting the extraction temperature this time. She was so close, that's why she couldn't stop. Dennis entered the room and asked if she was planning to work late again today. Marlene muttered that she was going to do that, and Dennis had just told her to not overdo it. Before he left the room, he told her that he brought her a snack and she should have some later if she wanted. While still muttering, Marlene couldn't help but notice how good something smelled. She saw the apple pie Dennis brought and got so happy. Since Dennis made this by himself, she didn't want to eat it and wanted to keep it as a family heirloom, but her stomach didn't seem to agree with her. She had been so focused on her work that she forgot to eat. She decided to have just one slice, but the apples were so juicy and sweet that she couldn't stop herself from having another slice. Not only did it satisfy her hunger, but it was like her tiredness was melting away too, and the tartness made her feel refreshed. This was the first time she had ever had such a delicious apple pie. In the end, she ate it all. And thanks to Dennis, she was now filled with power. She decided to keep working until she was finally successful. The next day, Gio came to the shop and asked Marlene as he was worried. Dennis responded that she was going to be done with the potion soon. She enjoyed the apple pie and her work was progressing smoothly. While they were talking, Marlene opened the door and gave the big news. She finally did it at last. They were amazed by her hard work and congratulated her. They thought she finally made an elixir, so they didn't expect her to make an ex-love potion. As they were puzzled, she said that she had always wanted to make one. Hachiu beans, musk extract, powdered jichi grass, and just a drop of cursed extract were required for this potion. They were shocked that she used cursed grass and not the other herb. She explained that it was a legendary herb that was impossible to obtain, so she couldn't believe it when he brought some in. Dennis asked what was about the elixir, and Marlene responded that she made that while taking a breather. They couldn't believe that she made a miraculous medicine while taking a breather. She said that even though it was an amazing medicine, sure, she couldn't put this in her shop. Gio thought she should sell it here, but she said that in the capital auctions, elixirs had gone for 50 million gold coins, and they had even been the source of wars. It was an amazing medicine, and that means it wasn't just limited to saving people. Even so, she couldn't help but want to make it after getting the ingredients, so she did and gave it to Gio. Dennis was annoyed that she didn't tell them before. Marlene thanked him for that wonderful snack because it was a great help in making the love potion. It was difficult for her to work out the perfect balance, but the finished product was highly effective. With a trembling voice, Dennis asked her what she was planning on doing with that love potion. Marlene responded comfortably that she was going to make him drink it and then they could have all sorts of fun together. Their discussion continued even after Gio left the shop. He couldn't care less about their fight because he had got something outrageous, but he doubted he would ever get a chance to use it. Meanwhile, at the dungeon, the girls were in the ruins area. Annie told them to take shelter as it was dangerous to be out in the open. Annie was injured by one of the archers, but all she needed was a potion to fix up the scratch. She suddenly noticed people standing in the way they were running. They were all surrounded now. Sina thought they were talking monsters, but Annie explained that they were humans, though they didn't seem to be adventurers. Sifa said she didn't know who they were, but it was clear they were after them. In the next scene, Gio heard Milk's frustrated voice and immediately went to check what was going on. The monster egg was hatching. He could hear the monster's crying voice inside the egg. Milk was acting just like he did when he hatched, so he tried to calm him down. The first piece dropped and Gio saw a beak. He assumed that it was a bird monster, but when the egg hatched completely, all he could see was a fur ball. Milk rolled the fur and there it was, a cute fluffy chick. Though it was cute, its size was huge. Milk's grown a lot since he first hatched, so it was possible that this one would be that big too. He was glad it hatched without any complications, and this was all thanks to Milk. Now it was time for the naming ceremony. He suggested a bunch of names to Milk, but he refused all of them. Gio thought about it for a moment and then suggested naming it Pippi. Mick seemed to like that one, so it was settled. The monster's name was Pippi. When Sina came back from adventuring, she immediately asked about Pippi. Gio explained that it was a bird and it was a new member of their family. Pippi seemed to like Sina, unlike Milk. She mentioned that Milk never let her cuddle with him, so this was extra refreshing for Sina, especially since they encountered some trouble in the dungeon when some suspicious people suddenly attacked them. Gio was shocked. Sina explained that they were after their party. Luckily, they kicked their butts right away. Gio asked who they were and what they wanted, but Sina was as clueless as he was. She said that when they tried to capture them, some monsters got in the way and they managed to run away. Gio thought this was a lot like what happened with Hazia, so he was a bit suspicious about their goal. Meanwhile, the ones who failed to capture the girls informed their leader that they failed. Their boss, apparently his name was Volka, started scolding them. They tried to explain that they couldn't take them down for some reason. Since their target was a B-rank adventurer, they would already think it might be hard to take her down by force. Volka asked if he was trying to say that his plan was flawed. The man panicked and tried to deny that. Volka was so pissed off that everyone forgot how to breathe. Volka decided to make a new plan, but this time it would be perfect. When he became an executive of the gang, he received an order from the boss. It was to capture the girl named Sifa. His boss was obsessed with her. His predecessor, Hazia, was let go after his failure and he disappeared. And Volka knew he could end up just like him if he disappeared. But he had made his way up in the underworld using his wits, and he was far smarter than that guy. The men told him that they would make sure to make up for their failure in the dungeon and not fail again. Volka started twitching and told him that last time, he had just miscalculated how weak they were. This time their duty was to place that bracelet of servility onto the target. The person wearing this cannot defy the orders of the person who was wearing its counterpart, the bracelet of control. This was a powerful magic item that could only be used once he obtained it from the black market. He somehow pointed out that the design was made to order. He liked how it was designed, so he assumed the target might even want to wear it. They carried out the plan right away and left his room. With confident steps, they arrived at Sifa's house. Their leader told them to find her room. Sifa was awake and heard their footsteps, which she thought was her father. Her room's door opened and the bandits were doomed because they were supposed to carry out the mission while everyone was asleep. Sifa came out of her room and looked at them in her cute dress. They were so amazed by her beauty that they couldn't do anything. Sifa used her power and attacked them. Since she was unarmed, they thought they could catch her, but she told them to bow down and stop their movements. She took down everyone one by one with ease. They couldn't use their numbers to their advantage in this narrow hallway. After defeating everyone, Sifa asked if they were the ones in the dungeon. She then asked who they were and what they wanted from her. They started running away, but then Billy woke up. One of them wanted to take her father hostage, but Billy knocked him off with his one hand. Everyone was shocked, so he explained that he used to be a blacksmith in the military, and when they didn't have enough men, they would send him to the front line sometimes. He then got serious and decided to hand the lot of them over to the town guards. He tied everyone up and handed them to the guards. They informed the guards that a few of them had slipped away, but the guards stated that it was okay and they had been trying to deal with them for years. They still haven't told them why they broke into their house, but they promised to investigate it. Billy noticed that Sifa was tired, so he told her to go take a nap. When Sifa was returning to her room, he noticed the bracelet on the ground. She was actually amazed by how beautiful the bracelet looked. Meanwhile, at his house, Volka couldn't believe they failed not only once, but twice. He told them to give him the bracelet and that he would do it himself, but was informed that they dropped it during the attack. He started freaking out because it was a valuable, expensive, precious bracelet and they ruined his plans. But suddenly the bracelet of control reacted. Sifa fell on her knees and started to have a weird feeling. Volka calmed down since the target put on the bracelet of servitude. In the next scene, Sina gets ready to leave for another adventure. Jo was worried about her as she had just been attacked in the dungeon before, but Sina was sure that it would work out somehow. Jo knew that she was the newest member, but he still wanted her to ensure that Sifa wasn't in danger. When Sina left, Jo couldn't help but wonder if Sifa was really being targeted. He tried to convince himself that he was just overthinking and hoped it was nothing. While he was thinking about this, Sina slammed open the door and told him that something had happened to Sifa. They immediately went to Sifa's house and saw her surrounded by the others. Jo was so worried that he couldn't help but ask her lots of questions. Annie told him to calm down, but he couldn't because she looked pretty sick. Sifa showed the bracelet and stated that it was because of that. She said that as soon as she put it on, her body started feeling weird and now it was stuck to her skin and she couldn't take it off. Jo was confused as hell, so they explained it from the beginning. Billy told him that they were attacked by a gang in the middle of the night. Sifa continued that they were probably the same people who attacked them in the dungeon. Annie figured that they were after Sifa the whole time. Sina was overflowing with anger. Sifa explained that they drove them off, which impressed everyone. Billy continued that they captured some of them and turned them into the authorities, and he thought that would be good enough. But then Sifa put on the bracelet that they left behind. Jo was puzzled as to why she would do that and was shocked when she said it was so pretty that she couldn't help it. Annie and the others scolded her a little bit for not being more cautious. Jo asked if Billy thought the bracelet was cursed, and he responded that he had an appraiser take a look at it first thing in the morning, and it was revealed that it is a magic item. Sina was confused, so Annie explained that it was an item infused with mana that could be used to activate some kind of spell. It seemed some fairly powerful mana had been infused in this item. However, they still had no idea what it actually does. Annie was sure that it wasn't something good because it was in the possession of that gang. Something weird was already going on, and at this rate Sifa was going to be in danger. Sifa apologized for making everyone worry. Jo felt so bad seeing Sifa being in a lot of pain. He didn't know how to remove the bracelet, but hoped that there was something he could do to help her. He then asked Billy if a healing potion would help her a little. Billy didn't think it negates magic, but it might be better than doing nothing. Annie had a few for the adventure, and Jo went to get them from their house too. Meanwhile, at Volka's house, the bandits were celebrating that the target put the bracelet even though they failed their mission. They also figured that the target picked the bracelet because of the charming design, and Volka was right. Volka acted like he wasn't surprised and mentioned that once the bracelet of servitude has been put on, it could never be removed, and if someone other than the target puts it on, it would turn to foam. The plan was a success, and Volka was glad to get that expensive bracelet. Once the target had been charmed, he could control her at will, and it would be easy to present her to the boss. He didn't forget to compliment his intelligence. He started to think if they should go pick up the poor girl who fell into his trap. In the meantime, Jo brought all the healing potions that he had. Sifa already drank the ones they had, but as expected they only restored her strength, even though they were made by Marlene. Jo had an idea and asked if she could try out the glowing rainbow potion. The girls were shocked, but Jo corrected them that it wasn't a potion. It almost slipped through his mouth that it was an elixir, but he stopped himself and stated that it might be more effective than a potion. He knew that she might not want to drink it if she found out how valuable it was. Sifa trusted Jo and decided to drink the potion. Before she drank it, Annie didn't forget to ask if it was a love potion. While she was drinking the elixir, her body started to sparkle and her body felt better. In addition to that, she heard something broke. The bracelet came off like it was nothing. Everyone was shocked by this result because nothing worked enough to break the bracelet. They were so happy that she was okay, but also confused because it hadn't even moved an inch before. Billy seemed relieved that she was fine. Gio was also surprised because even though he knew it was a miracle cure, he didn't know that it was that powerful. When Annie asked what he gave to her, Gio responded nervously that it was an elixir. Everyone started screaming from shock because they had no idea he brought something insane like that. Annie started shaking him while Sina and Sifa were puzzled. Annie explained to them that elixir was a legendary wonder drug that could cure any illness, heal any wounds, and reverse any abnormal conditions. Billy realized that elixir could also neutralize the unknown effects of the bracelet. They had no idea how incredible the elixir was. Given how shocked they were, Gio figured that it was a good thing he didn't tell them what it was before. Sifa then asked seriously if it was okay for her to drink that. Gio responded that it was okay and that he didn't even imagine it would break off the bracelet. She then assumed that it was an expensive item, but he explained that it wasn't that expensive. The market price was several thousand gold coins, but it was free since it came from his garden, but of course, he couldn't explain that here. One of the blacksmiths mentioned that he saw an elixir at an auction a long time ago, and it sold for around 5,000 gold coins. They were shocked by Gio's will to save Sifa, while Sifa was making promises that she would pay him back even if it took her whole life. Sina wondered why he would have such an amazing thing in the first place, which was even more complicated than the situation he was in right now. Annie sighed and concluded that Sifa was better now, which meant they could put this whole incident behind them and talk about that later. Everyone seemed calmer now and focused on Sifa's well-being. After Sifa thanked them for worrying about her, they went back to work and Gio was relieved now. Annie told everyone to go to Sifa's room to talk. Gio couldn't even have time to get excited to see Sifa's room. As the moment they entered, Annie started interrogating him. She had already figured that the elixir was made from ingredients from his garden. He revealed that Marlene made it from the ingredients he harvested in the garden. She wasn't surprised by anything anymore. But this didn't stop her from yelling at him for using it in front of a huge crowd of people who didn't know the specifics. Gio apologized for causing such a commotion, but at least everyone settled down now. She then turned to Sifa and comforted her that even though it was an elixir, it was made for free, so she didn't need to pay him back. Gio backed her up by saying he could make as many as he wanted, and the most important thing was that she was all right. She said she understood that, but it was all thanks to him that she could remove that bracelet, so as a thank you, she decided to do anything he wanted. While she was holding his hand, Gio was about to have a heart attack. Annie interrupted them by scolding Sifa because she said he might make some pervy demand or ask her to date him or marry him. Gio clarified that she didn't need to do that, and her gratitude was more than enough for him. Sifa said that she was going to repay him someday for sure. Before they left, Annie told Sifa to be careful as it was confirmed that there was a weirdo after her. They decided to skip the adventure today. While they were chatting, Volka was near Sifa's house and was watching them. He noticed how beautiful she was and waited until Gio and the others left. And since he didn't know that the bracelet was broken, he thought he could make her do whatever he wanted. He went to Sifa and told her that he was the man who was going to be her master from now on. He reached his hand towards her and told her to come with him. But Sifa did not react to him and asked why she would do that. Seeing that she didn't obey his comments, Volka was puzzled. He tried one more time, but she refused to come with him. Volka was shocked. He then tried to give another command, telling her to spin around 3 times while parking like a dog, but there was still no response from Sifa. He then noticed that she wasn't wearing the bracelet. He thought this was impossible, but then wondered if his subordinates lied to him. When Billy came and asked Sifa if she would mind if he melted this bracelet down, he started gasping loudly, which interested Billy. He decided to try getting her to wear it again later and said he was merely a passerby, and it would be a real shame to melt down that bracelet, and suggested giving it to him. Billy looked at Sifa and responded to Volka that he couldn't do that because it was a dangerous magic item. When he said her daughter wore it and then took it off, Volka was shocked. He didn't even know what that meant because that shouldn't be possible as far as he knew. Sifa asked if he knew something about this bracelet. She also noticed that the bracelet he was wearing was similar to this one. Seeing her getting suspicious, he decided to give up and withdraw for now. When Volka came back to his house, he told his subordinates that the plan failed. They didn't believe him because the plan was perfect. He said that he never imagined she would be able to get the magic item off, but this wasn't the end because he was planning to come up with a new plan. Now that it had been deactivated and the effect was gone, the bracelet was nothing more than junk. One thing he was bummed about was the price of the bracelet. Meanwhile, Sina was trying to convince Gio that if he made a ton of elixirs and sold them, they would never have to work another day of their lives. He corrected her. He told Sifa that he could make as many as he wanted just so she wouldn't feel bad. In truth, he could actually do that, but he can't ask Marlene to do that. He told Sina that if she didn't shape up a bit, she would get fired. And he mentioned the other day that their party member who went to the capital was coming home soon. In the next scene, Liruka came to Gio's house for the harvest. Gio had something new today for her. Liruka couldn't believe her eyes when he showed her adamantite. This rare metal was considered the hardest in the world, but Gio had lots of it. This metal wouldn't even get cracked if an atlas stepped on it, and she had heard even dragons couldn't chew through it. Gio asked if they could use this to make durable weapons because Sina wanted to get a new sword since hers had lost its edge already. Liruka told Gio that the material was so hard that it was actually difficult to work with, and there were only a few blacksmiths in the world who could handle it. Gio didn't expect to have that sort of problem. In that case, he thought it would be better to have the sword made out of mithril. She said mithril was plenty strong, and if it was a weapon made of high-purity mithril, it could even be powered up with magic buffs. That meant that she could ask magic effects on it like casting a spell just by swinging the weapon or healing her own wounds when she kills an enemy. That sounded super convenient, but Gio remembered that he produced some high-quality mithril a while ago, but it looked a little off. He took it from his storage and showed it to Liruka. He said it was so weird because the mithril he had produced in the past was faintly glowing and pretty. Liruka told him that he had got it backwards. When mithril is of low quality, the mana within leaks out and emits a glow. Then the mithril that wasn't glowing at all would be 100% pure one. It was something that couldn't be obtained in nature. After talking with Liruka, Gio decided to ask Billy to make a sword out of the mithril he was holding. He noticed someone standing in front of the workshop and approached the woman. She was so focused on watching the blacksmith's work that she didn't notice Gio right behind her. Gio apologized for startling her and said he was just wondering if she needed something. The girl seemed nervous and scared, and she said she wasn't a weirdo, and she just came here to see Sifa. Gio responded that Sifa was on an adventure right now. The girl thanked him and immediately ran away in a hurry. From her reaction, Gio started to think that she was a weirdo. Billy saw Gio and they greeted each other. He asked if he needed something and Gio said he would like him to forge a sword for his sister. Billy was more than willing to do that because Gio had been a big help for the last while. Gio thanked him and gave him the material. He was already surprised that he gave him mithril, but when he saw the color of the material, he was absolutely shocked. Meanwhile, the girl that was watching the store was pretty bummed that she was acting up suspiciously again. Her name was Sarasa. Once every few years, mages were summoned to the capital's magic academy for a competency exam. Sarasa was so nervous that she almost failed and was just glad she made it back home in one piece. Even if she wasn't around, she was sure Sifa and Annie would be fine, but it might be inconvenient not having someone able to use magic. She felt the need to work extra hard when they met up. She decided to wait for Sifa and Annie at the guild. She went to take a peek in Sifa's family workshop since she arrived a little early, but the craftsman's muscles were too irresistible not to look at. The month-long one-way trip to the capital and back was grueling, but she felt completely refreshed after seeing those muscles. She then started thinking about Gio. He was pretty delicate, but he seemed to be friendly with the craftsman. Suddenly, a man walked past her and she was almost going to reach out his hand. She decided to calm down by staring at some nice muscles. Two men were standing by the window. One of them was asking the other if he was sure he was good enough, and told him that he could form a party with stronger members than him. The other one said it was fine because going on adventures with anyone but him was meaningless to him. The dark-haired one asked what he meant by that, and he said that he became an adventurer just to go on adventures with him. Sarasa, who was peeking behind a plant, created a whole scenario in her head and was delighted by their conversation. She started seeing every guy as a couple and realized that she was totally useless. She didn't only like muscles, she also looked at men with such rotten eyes. She wanted to stop this habit of hers, but she just couldn't help herself. Anya and Sifa arrived at the guild and saw Sarasa. Annie told her that she had called her name 100 times and guessed that she was excited about muscles again. Sarasa immediately confirmed her because she didn't know them to know that she was fantasizing about men being in love. Sina came and asked who she was talking about. Sarasa was surprised and asked who she was. Sifa introduced Sina as their party's new vanguard. Annie introduced Sarasa as a mage and mentioned that she was their oldest. Sina shook Sarasa's hand and said she liked sleeping and eating food her brother makes. Sarasa felt bad because she thought she had caused everyone trouble by leaving the party, and they had to get a new member. Sifa explained to her that while she was away, they conquered the volcano and the underwater areas. She told her that as if they cleared out an easy dungeon, so Sarasa was frozen. Canelia asked Sifa to come for a moment. She then noticed Sarasa sitting silently. She asked what was wrong since she was so gloomy, and Sarasa said it would have been fine even if she hadn't come back. Annie explained to Canelia that they picked up a new member while Sarasa was away and made a lot of progress in the dungeon, so she had developed an inferiority complex. But Annie told her that Sina always wanted to go home right away. Sina didn't deny that and said she didn't want to work. Sarasa became an adventurer to observe the muscles and interactions of male adventurers. Even though magic was her only redeeming quality, and she constantly messed up due to her nerves, Sifa and Annie still took her in, so she thought she felt the need to be of some use to this party. Canelia said it was true they had a lot of success lately, but with her in the mix, it would be like giving a troll a club. They would be able to handle even harder quests. She then took out a paper and said she had a request she would love for the four of them to take on. In the next scene, the whole town was hearing Sina's scream that she didn't want to spend a week killing wyverns. To calm her down, they brought her to her house, but Gio wasn't there, so she was still having the biggest breakdown. This was a request from a small village called Moria. It was a 1-week round trip from here. This was beyond their closest guild's capabilities, so they had called on Arcel for assistance. Thanks to a certain group of people, raiding the dungeon was a booming business right now, and no other parties were willing to go out for a week. After Cornelia said that they had no other choice but to accept the quest. But they had to do something about Sina, because she was still saying she didn't want to go. Annie told Sarasa that she hoped she would like Sean despite her attitude. Sarasa suddenly said she couldn't do this either because she was 100% certain that she would be useless for exterminating a wyvern. Anya and Sifa immediately objected to that idea. Sarasa said wyvern might not be as powerful as a dragon, but it was still a strong monster that was scary. Now half of the members in the party didn't want to go. Gio arrived and saw them sitting in the room. He saw Sarasa and immediately recognized her from the workshop. The first thing Sarasa had in mind was to guess that he would be a bottom. Sifa explained to Gio while Sarasa was creating scenarios in her head, and Gio told Sina to stop causing problems with her tantrums. Sarasa couldn't believe she was still thinking about that stuff even in this kind of situation. Gio turned to Sarasa and mentioned they had already met. Sarasa was so nervous while introducing herself. Gio found it amazing that she had traveled to the capital before because he had barely even left this city. Sarasa didn't know that Gio wasn't an adventurer. Gio said he was keeping a home garden, which stunned her. Gio asked if she would like to have dinner with them. He told her to think of it as a little reward for coming back from the capital. Sarasa panicked and asked why he would do that for her. He responded that there was no need to hold back because he had plenty of harvested produce to go around. Sifa asked Gio if they could tell Sarasa about his skill. Annie said it would be tough to hide it from her. Sifa believed that she was a trustworthy and close friend of theirs. Sarasa felt good that Sfia was feeling that way about her, and Gio was okay with showing her while she explained. Sarasa thought she was more suited to being a writer than never leaving the city like Gio. Gio called Sarasa and showed her his garden. She was amazed that he maintained a garden this massive, and her curiosity to know what his gift was increased. He was about to explain it, but Milk and Pippi started rushing towards them. Sarasa thought they were monsters and immediately put them on guard. She thought they had to get out of there. Gio said they had gotten pretty big, but she didn't hear him. She told everyone to get down while activating her lightning spell. She was about to use Lightning Strike on the cuties, but fortunately, Gio stood in front of her to protect his animals. Sarasa stopped herself in the last second before she accidentally hit Gio. Annie and Sifa asked if they were okay. She told them to hurry up and get out of there, but then realized that they weren't attacking. Gio told her that those monsters were his pets. When he explained to her the situation, she was so sorry that she bowed down to him, begging for forgiveness. Gio said he should have trained them better and apologized for giving her such a fright. While sobbing, Sarasa said she had never learned about a gift that could give birth to monsters, even in the academy. Annie told her that it was okay and his gift was just bizarre. Either way, Gio found that she did incredibly well. Despite appearances, Sarasa graduated from a magic academy at the top of her class. As he complimented her, she said the only thing she was good at was magic, and even now she kept making mistakes in everything else. Gio told her that this wasn't true because she tried to protect them. Sarasa said she did, but that was just a misunderstanding. The only reason things were resolved safely was because he put himself in danger. Gio admitted he was pretty spooked by that lightning attack. Gio said they were the same and that they both found their courage in order to protect others. Sifa patted her shoulder and told her that her magic was incredible. Annie joined and told her that she was crazy strong even though she was a coward, and she was sure she could protect the people of Moria. They told her that they would need her power to eliminate the wyvern. Thankfully, Sarasa got the courage she needed from her party members and Gio and said she would do her best to take down the wyvern. They were really happy that she wanted to go too, and Gio said he would be cheering for her as well. Milk and Pippi leaned to Gio and he said they were going to cheer for her too. Sarah asked if they were male or female and he said they were both male. Sarasa's real character was revealed for a second after she heard they were both males. Sina came and asked if that would mean she could stay home. They totally forgot about the fact that they had to deal with her too. Saif said they needed her power too. But still, traveling for a week sounded so bad to Annie too. She had an idea but wasn't sure. She asked if they could use Gio's home garden. Sina asked what she meant. Sifa figured out what she meant and realized that if they did that, Gio could travel along with them too. Gio was shocked and thrilled by the idea that he would be able to go with everyone. Sarasa was confused because Gio's gift was a home garden. Sifa and Annie looked at Gio for approval to explain and he nodded to them. However, Before they could explain, Sina's tummy growled so much that it interrupted their conversation. Annie said they mentioned having some food. Sina agreed, saying that she wasn't getting anywhere on an empty stomach. Sifa agreed with them because she would like Sarasa to have a chance to eat some of the products of the garden as well. Jo then suggested eating before continuing the discussion. In order to defeat Wyvern, it was best to build up their strength with a good meal. It would be Sarasa's first time having vegetables fresh out of the garden, so she was excited. Jo prepared a delicious-looking steak for Sarasa. He said that was all he had on hand, but Sarasa was even surprised that he could get that super thick meat. Jo said meat grew on trees in his home garden. Sarasa was having a hard time processing this information, but when Sifa and Annie confirmed her and she saw the meat tree, she was just shocked. She didn't understand when he said it produced those monsters earlier either. But the fact that he had meat growing on a tree was next level. He said he also had some rice, which was a rare grain. Sarasa was scared because she wasn't sure if those were safe to eat. Sifa told her that it was okay, and she would see after taking a bite. Jo told her not to feel pressured. Sarasa couldn't do that to Jo because he went out of his way to make it. She was still confused, but since everyone said it was okay, she decided to be brave and taste the meat. As she started chewing, she was already hooked because it was so tasty. The meat was so tender that it melted in her mouth and the juice was bursting with flavor. She loves how rice tastes too. She said she had never had food this tasty, not even in the capital. Jo brought her the second round. Jo explained to Sarasa that he wanted to become an adventurer, but this was the gift he received. But it turned out to be pretty useful since he could make a lot of delicious food. Sarasa found him incredible and mentioned that a guy who could cook would be great. She started expressing the scenarios she was creating in her head and confused the hell out of everyone. Annie added that this wasn't the only thing Gio's gift was good for. They could only conquer the dungeon thanks to Gio. He had helped out both Annie's family's restaurant and Sifa's family's blacksmithing shop and saved the city. Sarasa couldn't believe a gift like that even existed, and realized that even though Gio looked delicate, he was actually out of this world. As he tried to humble himself, the girls started complimenting him, and Sarasa noticed that he was popular too. He was surrounded by his beautiful little sister and childhood friends. As she continued eating, Sarasa reminded herself that she was not interested in harems. Annie said Gio's gift had a lot of functions, so they might be able to use it for traveling. Gio didn't think about that before. Sarasa asked if he could activate it at their destination. Gio had never thought about that and just assumed it could only be used on the land he owned. Sifa said they could check it. If he could figure out how to use it skillfully, it would make their long trip way more comfortable. If he managed to do that, both Sina and Gio could come with them. In the next scene, the Adventurers Guild gave them a horse-drawn wagon for their trip. Gio was ready to try out. He opened the system and requested to designate a garden, and fortunately, it worked. Annie tried to explain Gio's gift and said he could make land not being used by anyone into a garden. After confirming that Gio's skill worked, Sifa told everyone to climb aboard. Before moving, Sifa asked Gio if he was ready, and he said he was. Gio was supposed to be syncing with Sifa, so as she started moving, he used his skill. The ground was carrying the wagon while they moved. As Sifa increased their speed, Gio kept up with her, and there it was, the traveling garden. They were shocked that it worked, and it wasn't even bumpy at all. From the outside, it looked like the horse was pulling the wagon normally, but in reality, the garden was moving, and since the horse wouldn't get as tired, they could move faster. Not only that, but they could also go back to the Arsenal anytime they want with travel between gardens, and they didn't have to worry about food or bed. Gio still didn't believe that his gift could be used like this too. Sarasa was still confused as to how in the world this qualified as a home garden. Plus, now even Sina could come along on the journey. Suddenly, Sina said they wanted to go home. Gio asked what she was talking about, and she said only Gio needed to be in the wagon so she could have a nap at home. Then when he arrived, he could teleport over and get her. She had a point, but they absolutely objected to this idea. Gio told her that they were finally going on a journey, so she could at least try to enjoy the scenery. Suddenly, Annie noticed that a pack of monsters was coming at them, so they had to guard the wagon. There weren't only monsters though, there were other presences mixed in. Bandits were coming to surround their wagon. Gio always knew traveling and danger go hand in hand, but he never expected they would be suddenly attacked. Among the bandits, the man who tried to attack Sifa was there too, and his target was once again Sifa. He had incited the bandits to attack them while their defenses were light during the trip. The bandits were ready to attack, but they couldn't help but notice that their wagon was strangely fast. Raidens were fast monsters, but they didn't have much stamina, so they had to catch them before Raidons got too tired. The girls tried to come up with a plan, and Annie said it was better to escape than to fight back, so she told Sifa to go faster. But they were already at max speed. If they go any faster, the horse wouldn't last. Gio suggested using the vegetables from his garden to feed the horse. It wouldn't hurt to try, so they threw a bunch of carrots at the horse. and the moment it ate one, it started going a lot faster. The bandits were delighted that they caught up to them, but the wagon started going incredibly fast all of a sudden. Puzzled, they wondered what was going on with that wagon. The radons they were riding were at their limits, so they wouldn't be able to catch them. Within minutes, their wagons were far away from their sight. He couldn't believe he had lost once again. Gio and the girls were relieved that they had given up. Sifa thanked Gio for his idea. Gio realized that they were already this far from Marcel, and it was dangerous outside the city. But he felt comforted when he looked at everyone and reminded himself that he had his garden's power too. The wind felt so good, and their journey to Moria had just begun. Meanwhile, the Lord was informed that Sifa and her crew had gone on an expedition, and it would take them around a week to make it back. In that case, she said it was the perfect chance to investigate the land that she had. The Lord couldn't believe that this was the swamp that he had given Sifa and the others as their reward. It was just as the report said. The whole area was just an empty lot. The knight said it had only been a short time since it was given to them. But it was still hard to believe when she saw how massive the place was. Moreover, when she tried to enter the area, there was an invisible wall just as the report said. According to their preliminary investigation, this wall surrounded the whole clearing. Due to that, they haven't been able to get in. The knight asked if she could just use her authority as the Lord to investigate this place without needing to go out of her way to keep it a secret from those girls. Sure, she could have done that, but she would hate it if they had the chance to move to this place using that prior warning. She then decided to get over the wall instead of going around. The knight said he would give it a try and threw a rock at it, but the rock vanished about 5 meters into the air. She then decided to climb it. They threw a rope and started climbing the invisible wall. It was like she was walking on air. They reached the top where the rock had vanished before. She was so curious to know what was going to be beyond this point. When they entered the area, all they could see was a giant farm invisible from the outside. They seemed to be quite healthy. The Lord was confused because Sifa and her pals were adventurers, and they cleared up the swarm and planted a farm here. She wondered how they made such a massive farm and erected that kind of barrier. The knight informed her that there were some unfamiliar crops in the back. They wanted to keep up the investigation, but Gio's golem appeared, and it didn't seem friendly. They decided to retreat and ran away just in time before the golem caught them. Milk and Pippi were also watching what was happening from a distance. The knights asked the Lord if she was okay. She said she was okay, but fighting a golem of that size wouldn't be a cakewalk, so it was going to be hard to continue investigating like this. The knight asked if it was too dangerous to ignore the place as it was now and if it posed a threat to the domain. The golem didn't follow them beyond the wall, so it should be safe as long as no one trespasses on this land. Plus, she knew that the mysterious wall and golems were the ones that stopped the stampede, defeated the Atlas, and saved all of them back then, so they were in their debt. However, it had been verified that Sifa and her party were in the dungeon during that commotion. She still had nothing but questions about that mysterious farm, but she was certain that they were hiding something, and until she knew what it was, she couldn't declare it was safe. The biggest question in the Lord's head was what that secret was. Meanwhile, Gio and the girls saw their destination for today. They got there pretty early thanks to Gio's gift. Sina told him to teleport her back home, but he suggested looking at the local specialties first. Annie said she wouldn't mind taking a look around, but this place wasn't exactly a tourist destination. The Moria district was pretty rural, so it looked old. Sifa and Sina stayed with the wagon as they walked around the town. Sarasa noticed a lot of adventurers around the town. She overheard their conversation and started making scenarios again. She wanted to stay there for a bit more and told them that this town had food she couldn't get anywhere else as an excuse. Gio overheard people talking about a lack of food. Their fields had been producing so little as of late that they didn't have any choice but to wait for the merchants to deliver food. They seemed quite nervous about this issue. Gio approached them and asked if they were having trouble getting enough food. They said they could only serve simple meals at the moment. Recently, the Arsal dungeon has been booming in popularity, so the number of adventurers has increased. They couldn't keep up with demand and had been running low on food. Gio thought they would be okay since they could just teleport home, but those people were in a tough situation. Anya and Sarasa figured out what he was thinking, but they couldn't prevent him from saying he could supply them with some food. Within minutes, Gio gave them tons of supplies. The inn workers were shocked because there was so much wheat flour that they could bake some bread, and wondered if he was a merchant. Gio said he was just an ordinary person, and they had to help each other out during hard times. Sarasa wondered if it was okay to give away so much food so easily, and Annie responded that Gio was too dumbly good-natured for his own good. The inn workers tried to give him some money to pay him and tried to make it up to him, but he refused all of them. He said it wasn't a big deal and they shouldn't worry about it. After that, they left the workers stunned and ran away. Annie scolded Gio for not being careful about revealing his gift, but he said he didn't have any choice. Worried, Sarasa said that if people find out about the home garden, some bad people might come after him. She didn't want something awful to happen to him, just like in her mind. They decided to head back to Arsel now. First, they were going to move to a place where others couldn't see them. After that, he used his travel between gardens gifts. They made it back to the house easily despite being so far away. Annie and Sarasa were once again amazed by Gio. The horse, on the other hand, seemed to be in panic because of the sudden change of place. Sina asked what they were going to have for dinner, and since he had given away all their ingredients, he decided to go harvest more from the secondary garden. It was so strange to think he was on a trip until just a second ago, but it was fun. The scenery was new and he got to be with Sifa. Milk and Pippi came and tried to drag him. They showed the place the Lord sneaked in, and Gio saw the golem sitting there. He thought the golem got in a fight with some more crows, but then noticed footprints on the soil. The footprints weren't very clear, so he wondered if a monster wandered into the garden despite the concealment. He decided to heighten the wall and increase the number of golems just in case. He got a little too carried away in his excitement about the trip, and forgot about the fact that he had to protect his garden. He decided to tell everyone else about this, though Annie was already giving him a hard time earlier. Liruka came and greeted him. Gio was surprised to see her and asked what was going on because she usually came for their transactions in the morning. She said she heard he would be away for a little while, so she got worried when she saw the lights. Gio explained that he teleported back home from their destination, but that was perfect timing because he wanted to ask her something. He said that his secondary garden was land they got from the city lord, and he thought someone might have snuck in when he was gone. He said he tightened security by heightening the wall and adding more golems, but he wasn't sure what to do if it was a bad person. Liruka smiled and told him that she had an idea about that and wanted him to leave the incident to her. Gio was shocked that she knew something about this. She said she couldn't explain it fully, but she assured him that it wasn't something bad. Gio didn't understand what was going on, but having her reassurance was enough for him. He thanked her, and Liruka left after saying she would come to get the crops another time. Liruka thought she did a good job of earning his trust. She knew that the Lord was going out somewhere with her retainers today. She was really pleased by what was happening because apparently it was going as she planned. Gio went home and Annie asked if Liruka had come by since they heard him talking to someone. Gio was thinking about how amazing Liruka was. He almost lost sleep from worrying, so he was glad they got to chat. But he still thought he needed to be more careful. He started getting anxious about giving that food away so easily. Sina came and said she was hungry. Gio asked everyone if they were all planning to stay and eat or if they would rather go home and get some rest. Annie asked what he meant because they were supposed to be on an outing right now, and they couldn't let anyone know they had returned to Arsel. Gio totally forgot about that and then realized that Annie, Sarasa, and Sifa were going to be staying in their place tonight. As Sifa thanked Gio for hosting, Gio was freaking out in the inside. Throughout the night, Gio didn't sleep even a bit because he was so nervous that Sifa was in his house wearing cute pajamas. Meanwhile, Sina slept like a dog and woke up refreshed. After that, they went back to the forest. They were passing through the town with the inn and the people. Gio gave supplies yesterday, saw them, and waved at them. They were glad they caught him because they wanted to thank him for sharing his food with them yesterday. Thanks to that, they could satisfy the travelers. In fact, everyone gave raving reviews. They couldn't believe he gave them so much high-quality food for free. So as a thank you, they wanted to give him something. It was something they made with the ingredients he gave them. They said it would be easy to eat even while riding a carriage. They made it enough for his companions, too. Gio and the others thanked them and left the town. He was glad that they were such good people. Sina wanted to take a look inside the box they had them given. The food they prepared was something they had never seen before. The ingredients were put between 2 slices of bread, and there were some fried potatoes too. This was a perfect meal to eat while on the go. Everyone grabbed some and started eating. The soft bread with fresh vegetables and the meat was a combination that fit everyone's taste. Gio never expected to get to eat something so tasty while on a trip. Plus, everyone in that inn town was happy. Sarasa stated that this was all thanks to his kindness. She said she respected him now. He said he was always acting so impulsively. Because of yesterday's incident, he decided to be more careful about his gift. But still, he was glad that he approached the inn workers back then, because his home garden brings smiles to everyone's faces and he felt incredible after making them happy. With the beautiful sunset following them, Sifa informed everyone that they were going to be arriving at their target destination for today soon. It was a town called Zari. It was the Zari Guild that sent the request to Arsel. Once they were done with the formalities, they were going to get their equipment ready and head to Moria. Gio said Sina's sword was going to be ready soon, so they were going to pick it up when they returned to Arsel. At Zari, a woman was drinking like crazy. The bartender commented that she had been drinking too much, but she said it was barely dusk, and the night was still long. In the next scene, Billy finished Sina's new sword and delivered it to Gio. He used the same design for the handle and sheath, but when he pulled it out, he noticed how beautiful it was. Billy admitted that this was unmistakably the best sword he had ever made. That was all because of the 100% pure mithril he thought Gio bought from Laruka. He felt bad that Sena was away from town with Sifa right now because it would have been great if he could have finished it a little sooner. Gio told him that it was okay and thanked him. He was sure she would be thrilled. As he left his house, the girls were listening to them behind the wall. Sena absolutely loved her new sword. Gio told her to thank him herself once the expedition was over. Suddenly Sifa said the sword wasn't finished yet. Mithril swords could have spells attached to them. When she used the sword, she could activate the spell. Sena wanted to have a spell that made the sword fight by itself because she loved slacking off. Annie had no idea if that magic existed or not, but she said it would be really handy if she could use some magic. She asked for Sarasa's opinions, but she seemed busy muttering something from a distance. She was still creating scenarios about Gio. Annie patted her shoulder and startled her. She asked what this was about, and Annie explained that they were just discussing casting a spell on Sena's new sword and asked her to do that. Sarasa was shocked when she saw the sword because it was made of extremely high-quality mithril. There was no way she could buff a sword that stupidly amazing. Gio asked if it would be hard even for her. She said she knew how, but she was no good at the delicate manipulation of mana and she would be too nervous. If she messes up a buff, there is no way to fix it. She didn't have the confidence to work with such a great sword. The others didn't expect her to say that. Gio could understand her because he could mass-produce the resources needed. No problem, though Billy put his heart and soul into forging it. Annie and Sifa decided on the same idea and told her that it was good enough right now and they should get back to Zari and try looking for a professional enchanter later. Sarasa didn't expect them to give up that easily. Even though she swore she would do her best, Sarasa knew she was still not trying. At Zari, they went to the Adventurer Guild there. It was smaller than Arsel's. They entered and greeted them. The receptionist girl was a bit surprised as she had never seen them before. Sifa stated that they were the backup from Arsel, and they were here to help slay the wyvern in Moria. They arrived faster than she expected, but she thought for sure they requested B-rank adventurers or higher, and they were just young girls. And the boy didn't look too strong either. Sifa stated that she and Sarasa were B-rank. Gio didn't know Sarasa was a B-rank too. The receptionist took a look at her and said she didn't look too reliable. Annie was about to throw a fist, but Sarasa told her that it was okay. She then asked if there was a skilled enchanter or mage in this town. The girl asked the man in there if there was anyone like that in this podunk town. He said he heard there was a big commotion at the tavern. Apparently a traveling mage guzzled down all the alcohol they had. They went there to check out and saw countless empty bottles. Annie was concerned about that person. They asked where they were and apparently she left to sober up. Sarasa wanted to look for her because she might be a better mage than her. They asked what she looked like and the guy said she had a sharp look in her eyes and was half naked, but her most distinctive feature was her beautiful long hair that was the color of the sky at dusk. As he was describing her, she landed and asked if they were gossiping about her. Her name was Miranda. The team was shocked to see her come from the sky, especially Sarasa because she noticed that Miranda used flight magic without the need of a tool to transmit mana. Miranda said she was getting some air on the roof. Sarasa wanted to ask her something, but she stopped her and said that if she had some business with her she needed to pay up. This tavern didn't have enough booze for her, but while she was saying that she felt sick and threw up, they brought her inside, and she was lying down while saying she drank so much that she got sick last night. The man said this was their store. She said she paid for her drinks and he didn't have any other customers, but that was actually her fault. Miranda seemed insanely sloppy to them. Senna found her amazing because she was rolling around in the shop like she owned the place. Sarasa mentioned that even at the Magic Academy there were only a handful of people who could use the flight magic because it was a high-level skill. Despite her appearance, she was a master mage. Miranda noticed that they figured out how badass she was and introduced herself. And as a thank to for looking after her, she decided to hear them out, but first she wanted to drink. The bar owner told her that they didn't have any more alcohol for her to drink. Gio thought of something and told her to wait here for a second. He went back to the home garden and grew some alcohol for Miranda. It was his first time growing a beer, so he was confused as to the beer trees. The voice asked if he would like to harvest, and a barrel came out of nowhere, and the beer started shooting from the tree trunk. He was happy that it was convenient and hoped it tasted good. He brought that back to Miranda and she loved the taste. She said it has such a smooth head and rich aroma that goes down really easily. This was the first time she had had a beer this good and wanted more. Gio said he would give her as much beer as she wanted, but she had to at least hear them out. She was more than fine with that. Sarasa thanked her and said they were looking for someone who could buff a sword. Miranda asked why they were looking because based on her getup she was a mage herself. She asked why she couldn't do it. Sarasa just wanted her to take a look at the sword they wanted buffed, and Sena gave it to her. She was shocked, just like everyone. She took back what she said because buffing these things was a huge responsibility. Sena asked if she could do it, and she said she could. She might not look like it, but she was actually way better than most enchanters. However, she said it was going to be really expensive and it wouldn't be a price that ordinary folks like them could afford. Sarasa said they would figure something out and asked if there was any way they could convince her. She said she would do it, and since this beer was so tasty she felt like being nice. But her condition was to beat her in a drinking contest. If they beat her, she would give some powerful buffs for free. She said she wouldn't mind who joins, and whoever passes out or gives up first would lose. Sena and Gio have never drunk alcohol before, and even as adults, Annie could drink a little. Sifa volunteered to join just to strengthen Sena's sword, but Sarasa stepped up and said she would handle this as the oldest. They sat face to face and the girls cheered for Sarasa while Gio apologized to the bar owner. And with that, the drinking race started. Sarasa drank her first beer and surprised Miranda by guzzling it down. Miranda used a cold air spell to make the beer colder because there was nothing better than that. They were shocked that she was using magic even for that. Gio brought some snacks for them. Miranda said nothing would outshine the beer but was shocked when she tasted what he brought. They both started enjoying the contest because the beer was so good. Miranda asked if he had done something to the beer and wanted him to work for her while grabbing his shoulder. She said working for a real looker like her would be pretty great, but the girls grabbed him and said Gio was already employed full-time taking care of Sena. Miranda didn't insist on him and said she would take this opportunity to eat and drink as much as she wanted. But Sarasa was dedicated too. After countless beers, Sarasa's face was beet red, but she said she could keep going. Sena was still cheering for them and she looked drunk without even drinking. Sif had to bring her outside to get some fresh air, and they left them alone. Miranda commented that she could hold her liquor pretty well, but she knew Sarasa was at her limit, even though she wasn't giving up. Sarasa told her that she was right before. She could probably buff that sword, but she didn't have confidence. She just kept thinking about what if she failed and caused everyone trouble, so she didn't want to keep being useless. Until she secured her help, she said she was not going to give up. Gio listened to what she said, and then they asked him to fill her up. Miranda admitted that she didn't think she could be such a stubborn opponent. After finishing her beer, she said she lost and would do the buffing. Shocked, they asked if she was sure. She said thanks to them and she got to drink tons of yummy beer. She said she could actually keep going all night, but she couldn't even finish her sentence and threw up. They brought them some water and Miranda admitted that she had drunk too much. The girls came back and were shocked that Sarasa won. Miranda told them to hand over the sword. She said she was going to turn it into a true masterpiece. Gio asked if she was sure it was a good idea while she was drunk. She said it would be fine because she was used to doing everything drunk every day. Sena said she thought it would be fine too. She had a feeling this sword was saying it would be fine. Gio asked if she was still drunk. Miranda looked at the sword again and said it was a thing of real beauty. She couldn't see the depth of its power, but she still wanted to do it. She increased its attack power, agility, evasion, critical hit rate, and added auto recovery of stamina, auto heal, resistance to all effects, and impact ricochet. Even after those buffs, the sword could still hold more buffs, so she added one final buff. After the buffing was done, she threw the sword to Sena. The moment she grabbed the sword, she could feel the power surging through it. Miranda told her that whether she could master it or not would depend on her level of skill and wished her good luck. She said she was going to do now and thanked them for treating her. She said they would meet again if that was what fate decided. Sarasa thanked Miranda and she left the bar. Gio mentioned how amazing the buffs that Miranda cast were. They couldn't have convinced her to help without the beer from Gio's garden, but it was Sarasa's hard work that convinced her. Seeing them humble like that, Sifa and Annie told him to compromise and said it was thanks to both of them. Sarasa was glad she could be helpful. Now it was time to set out for Moria. Now that Sena's sword had been buffed, they were all set. They were actually lucky to have met Miranda and Zari. Sarasa suddenly asked the girls if they had heard of the Twilight Witch, and they didn't know. It was fair because Sarasa only learned from her at the Magic Academy. During the Great War between humans and demons, there was a powerful mage who single-handedly reversed the unfavorable position the humans were in. That was the Twilight Witch. She was so powerful that she could easily perform a number of buffs, and she had beautiful hair, the color of twilight, and Sarasa thought Miranda might be her for a moment. But a legend like that wouldn't be drinking in a backwater town like Zari. They suddenly heard something approaching them, and it was the bandits from before. They had a lot faster and higher level radons this time, and they were sure they would be able to catch up to that oddly quick wagon now. Annie said even if they speed up like last time, they may not be able to get away from them. Sarasa said she would use her magic, but Sena said she would drive them away. They were confused because they were too far away to fight them with a sword. She knew that, but she felt like she could do it. Sena climbed to the top of the wagon and took out her sword. The bandits were confused as to why a sword user was on top of the wagon and thought she could do nothing about it. But they didn't know about the final buff Miranda added to her sword, which was the flying blade that made her able to attack them from a distance. The bandits were all slashed with one move. They were confused as to how she could do that. Before they knew it, the wagon disappeared. Sena was so happy that she got a lot stronger now. Annie couldn't believe it was so strong and could even attack from a long distance. Sifa knew that Miranda really was a powerful mage. Annie hoped bandits had learned their lesson now. It was hard to believe that Sena stopped those bandits with just one swing of her sword, and she wondered if that was the effect of the buffs too. Meanwhile, Miranda was watching them from the sky, and she was taken aback. Flying Blade was a convenient buff, but its power was proportional to the skill of the wielder. She realized that she might have accidentally given it to someone outrageous. Sena was sure exterminating Wyvern was going to be a piece of cake with this sword. In the next scene, they woke Sena up because they arrived at the Moria village, which place being tormented by the Wyvern. As they started walking around the streets, there was no one and no noise. They knew it was a small village, but not seeing anyone was abnormal. Annie suggested talking to the mayor because he was the one who made the request. Unlike the depressive village and silent village, the mayor was a happy man who welcomed them with great hospitality. He thanked them for coming to their remote little village and assumed it was a difficult journey. Thanks to Gio's home garden skill, it was actually quite pleasant, but he didn't need to know that. The mayor noticed that they were all so young and asked if they could handle Wyvern. With great confidence, Sena and Sifa told him to leave them. They then asked for the details. Ever since Wyvern started living on the mountain near Moria, it had been carrying off the village's livestock almost every day, including their pigs, goats, and cows. They were lucky no villagers had been hurt yet, but it was probably only a matter of time. Everyone was anxious and had started avoiding going outside. They figured that the silence was because the villages had locked themselves inside out of fear. Even Sarada was dedicated, and she told the mayor that they were going to kill it no matter what. The hope in the mayor's eyes was clear as sky, and he said he was counting on them. Gio found everyone so cool because it was his first time seeing how adventurers help people in trouble. Except Sena, who didn't take anything seriously. After that, they decided to head to the mountain right away. Annie told the mayor to tell everyone to stay inside until they returned. Gio told everyone to be careful and said he would wait here, but Annie had told him to come. Panicked, Gio said he wasn't an adventurer. Annie couldn't believe he was saying this after all this time, and Sena told him that she would protect him. Sarasa agreed with the girls because with his gift he could escape right away if anything happened. Sifa was on board with this plan too and said they were counting on him. After her approval, there was no reason for Gio to stay in the village, so he tagged along with the girls. Using Gio's skill, they were moving a lot faster than usual because it could even climb up this slope. This way they could also conserve their strength. Gio told Sena not to lie down, but she said she was conserving her strength as an excuse. Annie started to sense a nasty aura from the summit and asked the others about their opinions on the damage to the village. Sarasa asked if she meant it was taking livestock nearly every day. She said that most wyverns were relatively small, even the large ones were only around 4 to 5 meters long. Annie questioned if it really consumed everything it had caught. Cows typically weigh several hundred kilograms, so she wasn't sure if a wyvern could carry something that heavy through the air. Confused, Gio asked what she meant. Sifa explained that it wasn't a normal wyvern, and it was probably a higher-ranking one. Gio asked if they should call for reinforcements, but having seen the state of the village, they couldn't take too long to help them. If they tell them about this possibility, they might panic. Sifa said they should decide what to do after they see it. Besides, even if it was a higher-ranking wyvern, Sena said everything would be okay as long as they killed it. Annie said she wasn't wrong. Gio was shocked because even though he knew her sword was strengthened and she was usually an easygoing person, she was surprisingly composed. When they were close to the summit, Annie told everyone to be on alert, and they got ready. She told Gio to stay back. Gio was trembling and sweating from stress, and Sarasa didn't seem so different from him. It was his first time seeing a wyvern. Sifa told him not to be so nervous because compared to an atlas, wyverns were small fries. With that, wyvern appeared. Gio couldn't believe his eyes because it was giant and it was nothing like anything he had seen before. It didn't matter that it was weaker than an atlas because it was still terrifying, and if it attacked him, he wouldn't stand a chance. Sarasa told him that it was okay, and they were all here. Sifa looked carefully and said it seemed like a normal wyvern. Sena said that meant they could defeat it normally. It started coming to them, so Sena took out her sword and said she would cut it down with flying blade. However, wyvern dodged her attack and it was fast. Sarasa said she stalled it long enough and that she would go next. She used her lightning strike power and crashed the wyvern to the ground. She weakened it with just a single spell and they were amazed. Sena said she would take care of it and started walking towards the monster. Gio said it was dangerous because it was still alive. Wyvern roared to Sena with terrifying power, but Sena calmly jumped and stepped on its head to slash its throat. Her sword was a lot sharper now, so she managed to kill it with only one move. Gio was shocked by how she took down Wyvern in the blink of an eye. Sarasa was so relieved and happy. Annie said they really weren't disappointed because they didn't even have a chance to jump in. Sarasa said the most impressive person was Sena. Gio, like big brother, ran towards her to see if she was okay. She said she was fine and that her sword was so easy to use now. She reminded him that she was really strong and Gio could believe her now. Annie confirmed that Sena's favor of the sword god was an extremely powerful gift. Sarasa could see how they had made so much progress raiding the dungeon. When it comes to strength, she was already B rank or even higher. It was hard for Gio to believe she was that strong and said she was really incredible. Sena was glad he had finally figured it out. She said she didn't need to work so hard, but he said she couldn't waste that talent and should even work harder. If she put in the work, she could become S rank, and it would be a dream come true. He said he couldn't just laze around knowing that, from now on he said they should take on more requests and gain from experience. But Sina was so annoyed because of him. He said he would support her any way he could, but all she wanted was for him to just spoil her. However, he was going to whip her into shape instead. The girls watched their brother and sister fight and were a bit. Sina managed to run away from him, so she said she won, and now he had to spoil her more than ever. Gio decided to let her off this time. Ever since they were kids, he had never known Sina to be anything but lazy and spoiled, so he never believed she would make a real effort. But she looked so cool when she was fighting. Ever since she decided to become an adventurer, she had been working so hard. Even so, he wished they had gotten each other's gifts. He wondered if the gods had made a mistake. Now that Wyvern had been taken care of, Senna asked if they could go home. Sifa said she had recovered the magic stone, but Annie said they should take a look around the summit, just in case, because she could still sense a nasty aura and there could be another Wyvern around. Gio regretted playing around with Sina after hearing. Sifa agreed and said that it would explain the scope of the damage to the village. Sarasa was scared before, but they still managed to kill it, so she believed they would handle another one. Gio said he was going to move the garden now and asked others if they needed some food or water because he could grow it here. Sean asked for a snack. Since Sena was doing her best, he decided to make himself useful with his gift. He started harvesting sweet potatoes and apples. Suddenly Annie felt a rustle and yelled, asking who was there. She was so focused on the summit that she didn't even notice someone watching them. A man said he had never seen something like this before, and he mentioned that moving the ground. Gio was starting to freak out because he recalled what Annie told him before. He said he took the chance to follow them, and just when he finally caught up, he found something truly fascinating. Taking out his hoodie, he asked what that ability was. Gio was shocked because he could see his home garden. After the countless failures of his plans, he believed it finally seemed like he wouldn't be going home empty-handed. Not only that, but he might also be able to bring that mysterious ability to the boss of a nice souvenir. Sifa explained that he was the weirdo who visited her during the bracelet fiasco. He was part of the gang that was after Sifa. Panicked, Terasa asked if that meant he was a bad guy. If someone like that were to find out about the home garden, they would start coming after Gio. Sina took out her sword and was ready to take him down here and now. Annie shuddered and stopped Sina. She was pretty shocked and worried because the presence at the summit was coming this way. After a few seconds, a red dragon appeared in the sky. That thing was way out of their league. Sifa explained to Gio that it had the same risk level as an Atlas and Ultra A rank. Sina seemed excited and couldn't decide which one she should fight first. The man was shocked because this wasn't part of the plan too. He decided to retreat for a moment but then realized that this might be a great opportunity. However, the dragon glared at him and grabbed and left. He tried to let himself go and asked for their help. Sarasa used her lightning magic but did no damage. That attack was capable of shooting down the wyvern before, and it didn't even leave a mark. The dragon started to fly higher. After that, it attacked them. As the flames started coming at them, Gio panicked because they were going to be burned to a crisp. Sifa hugged him and told him to use teleport. Others joined, and he started the process. At the last second, they arrived at the garden. That was pretty close. They couldn't have made it out without Gio. It was all because of her quick thinking. He was pretty surprised, but she was just doing that to ensure she was teleported to him. Sarasa was still trembling in fear. She couldn't believe there was a red dragon there. Senna asked if the wyvern is its underlying. Annie thought there might be a higher-ranking species there, but not something of that magnitude. But for Moria's sake, they had to do something about that red dragon. Not only that, but they also had to hurry up and save that Volca guy. Annie asked what would happen if he found out about Gio's garden. She had a good point, but they couldn't just abandon him. Annie got mad and told him to stop being so nice. They were all surprised at her reaction. Annie realized what she said and apologized. Gio apologized too, saying he wasn't thinking about how much danger saving him would put Sifa and them in. The things were so tense right now, so Sarasa started to panic again. But Sifa was calm. She said that saving Moria was their mission, and to do that they would have to kill that red dragon as quickly as possible. Senna said they might be able to save that guy at the same time. Then after they saved him, they could beat him black and blue. Once someone had been kidnapped, there was no time to wait for backup. They would have to kill it themselves. With the combined strength of Senna and Sarasa, they definitely have a chance of winning. The problem was the dragon's ability to fly. They were at a real disadvantage once it escaped high into the air. Sarasa's lightning magic also loses power the farther the distance it must travel. Gio's golems couldn't fight flying enemies either. Technically, if she could build up more mana, she could cast a stronger one. That spell could get even stronger than before. Lightning magic consumed a lot of mana, but thanks to her gift she recovered mana very quickly, which allowed her to use it without worrying about running out. Annie asked if building up a lot of mana takes time. She confirmed her and said it was hard to do during battle. It would be best if they could limit the dragon's mobility with Sarasa's lightning and then let Sena attack just like with the wyvern. Gio suggested going for a surprise attack. He could teleport them to the other garden after Sarasa had built up her mana, and then she could cast the spell before the dragon managed to fly too high into the sky. They all agreed that this might work, but to do that he would need to move the garden closer in advance. Annie was right. It was likely that the red dragon was on the move as they spoke. He promised that he was going to go to the other garden and move it. Sena thought it was dangerous to do it all by himself. Annie decided to go with him. She would be able to sense the red dragon's location, and everyone else should start getting ready on this side. Sifa agreed and said they were counting on the two of them. Sarasa asked Annie if she was sure about this. Annie stated that this was the perfect job for her. With that, the plan began. When they teleported, everything was scorched. It was like a completely different place. Based on the aura, the red dragon had gone back to the summit and probably got a nest there. Gio wondered if that guy was okay. He then explained that he was just worried. Annie apologized again for earlier. She said it was her fault that she didn't notice that guy tailing them, and should have been more vigilant. His gift might be uncovered because of her screw-up. Gio told her that this wasn't her fault. In fact, she was always so supportive of him. But Annie said considering detection is her specialty, it was a huge blunder. She didn't have the combat capabilities of the others. She said she had to be more careful. Defeating the red dragon and pulling off this surprise attack would also depend on her. Gio held her hand to comfort her, but she panicked more. He told her to calm down and reminded her that she didn't have to shoulder this burden alone. He agreed that Sifa, Sena, and Sarasa were all very strong, but everyone had full confidence in her too. If they all worked together, he was sure they could overcome anything, but he said he couldn't do much. Annie told him that this whole plan hinged on his outrageous garden. She couldn't believe he was the one cheering her up, but thanks to that she calmed down. Considering how much his hand was trembling, it would seem he was more nervous than her. Gio panicked and said he was just thinking about what would happen when they got close to the dragon. She told him not to worry. She held his hand and told him that just in case they need to teleport away in an instant, so they should go while holding hands. In the next scene, Volka was inside the dragon's cave, and he was furious that things had turned out like this. Luckily, he was able to escape the danger, but he was going to be dead meat if he got caught again. That said, he was in a tough spot. His body hurt so much he couldn't even move. He had one hope, but there was no way they could survive that attack. They were probably reduced to ashes without a trace left behind. Even if they managed to escape, surely they were so petrified by the red dragon that they had abandoned him. It was a convenient way for them to get rid of their pursuer after all. Besides, even if he got out of this predicament and made it back to Arsel, his short-tempered boss would definitely not overlook this failure. Then he would just end up like Hazea. Wherever he looked at it, he was screwed. He couldn't think of any more plans and accepted that he was done for. He wondered if this was karma for all his past wrongdoings. If only he hadn't joined a gang and lived a respectable life, he might not have ended up like this. While he was crying over his life, he noticed Gio and Annie. Gio saw him looking at them. Volka was shocked that they were unharmed and even followed them here. Gio and Annie were nervous because they needed Volka to be quiet. They both shushed him and Gio whispered to him that they were going to save him. Volka thought there was no way. He also noticed that peculiar moving plot of land under them and wondered if that was some kind of strategy. He found it fascinating. Annie whispered to Gio to go around to get behind it. The land moved and they slowly started going behind the dragon. The dragon roared in his sleep, so they stopped, but thankfully it didn't wake up. Gio slowly continued moving. He was praying that it wouldn't wake up until after they left. Volka couldn't see them in the blind spot, so he was curious. He was still thinking about how Gio said they were going to save him. Gio and Annie went back home and took a deep breath. They didn't notice that they were still holding hands until that moment, so they panicked a bit and said they pulled it off. Annie explained that they managed to get close to the red dragon while it was sleeping, and Volka was okay too. It seemed he wasn't as hard to reason with as expected. Gio wondered if he trusted them. Annie told him not to let his guard down because he also didn't want to die. Sena was glad that Annie had cheered up a little. She apologized to her for worrying her. Annie then turned to the others and said this was their chance and asked if everyone was ready. Even Sarasa said she was ready, and she seemed like it. Sifa had some potions to own, and Sena said they had their weapons too. Gio asked if he could use the wyvern magic stone for his garden. They seemed confused, so he showed them the stone. He said that this would strengthen his home garden. Annie had never heard of a gift that did that, though it was too late to say that now, after seeing a lot of impossible things in his garden. When Gio used the magic stone, he had leveled up to level 45, and it was now possible to cultivate new crops. He also had a new skill. Gio was excited about it, but he had never heard of the skill called 3-dimensional. He wondered what effect it had, and if it could be useful in battle. After he was done with that strengthening thing, they were all ready to go back and kill that dragon. Gio reminded himself that if things get dicey, he was going to teleport them away. Sena promised herself that her attack had to land this time. Sarasa was still trembling and was anxious about the possibility of her full-powered spell not working. Annie noticed and told her not to worry. She said that with all of them they could definitely defeat the red dragon. Sifa agreed with Annie, saying that there was no need to hesitate. She would buff them all with her gift. She even used the Empress's authority before they went to battle. Gio was amazed that he could feel power surging within him. Sarasa was no longer trembling. Her mana had been amplified as well. With that, they were all both physically and mentally ready for this. Geo used his travel skill, and they teleported. The dragon was still sleeping, and this range should be perfect for them to attack it. Volca couldn't see them in his blind spot, but he could see the light coming out of them. Sarasa used her lightning skill, and it was so powerful that even the villagers saw it. Volca recognized the lightning magic from earlier, but even he knew it was far stronger. He was shocked that they were trying to kill the red dragon. That was pretty reckless for sure, but it was super convenient for him. His pain had eased up a little. He was going to let them act as bait and watch for an opening to escape. But when he remembered what Geo said to him, he stopped for a minute. Sarasa was tired from using all her power. She said she was fine and she would recover in a second. More importantly, even that strong a spell didn't kill the dragon, and now it noticed them. Sifa said it was going to be tough, but at least it wouldn't be able to fly now. Sarasa asked Sena to take over. Sena was confident that they could count on her and started rushing towards the dragon. As she swung her sword, she was determined to kill this dragon this time. Even though it wasn't dead yet, Sena managed to damage the dragon enough to make another attack. They all cheered for Sena. Annie said its scales were harder than the wyverns, and it was so massive that it would be hard to deal with. In addition to that, it wasn't paralyzed anymore. Annie asked Sarasa if she could hit it with another spell. She would have to build up her mana first, but it was already so high up. This was just a repeat of earlier, even though they all pushed themselves to the corner. If they let it escape now, it might attack someone else. Geo wished that they could fly too, but now wasn't the time to think about the impossible. Suddenly, the system asked him if he would like to move the garden. Sifa told Geo that they should withdraw for now because it was going to use its fire breath again. Sena wished that they had more time. Before they withdraw, Geo wanted to check something first. He wondered if it was talking about the skill he learned earlier. When he agreed to move the garden, he realized that the skill was meant to travel three-dimensionally, which means he could ask to go up. The moment he said that the dragon used its fire breath and big flames came at them at full speed, he told everyone to go down while the garden they were all in started flying. When they opened their eyes, they realized that they were actually flying. Everyone was shocked and panicked about the garden flying, so they asked what the hell was going on. Geo said he was just trying something out, and this was the result. But this was literally crazy. But now they could fight the red dragon, so it wasn't that bad. Sifa said she couldn't imagine it could keep using its powerful fire breath multiple times in a row, so it was their chance to take it out now. Sena was waiting for that moment. She told Geo to get closer, and Sarasa used lightning to make it blind for a while. Dragon couldn't see anything after Sarasa used her power, and Sena used this opening to jump on the dragon. Geo was shocked. Sena was so excited because she had the advantage now, and she was not going to hold back. She stabbed the dragon with her sword and pierced its scales. The dragon screamed in pain, and its movements were getting unbalanced. It seemed like Sena's attack worked, but Sena lost her balance since the dragon was moving so much and she fell. As she was falling at full speed, Geo used traveling garden magic and tried to catch her, but the dragon was also going after Sena with the last of its strength. Sena noticed the dragon, but it was going to be hard to dodge in mid-air. Sarasa had just cast a spell and didn't have enough mana to protect Sena. Geo was worried because the dragon was faster than the garden. At that moment, what came to their help was no one other than Volca. He stepped up and screamed at the dragon that his prey was right here. The dragon was distracted, and it started flying towards Volca. Geo jumped from the garden and saved Sena just in time. Sarasa was shocked that Volca used himself as a decoy. The dragon was at death's door now. They told Sena to hit it again. Sena didn't hesitate at all, and this time she was sure that this was over. She used her flying blade power and slashed the dragon so badly that it collapsed to the ground. Volca was shocked that they really beat the red dragon, was dead, and the abductee was safe. Volca saw the girls and Geo behind them. Geo ran towards him and thanked him for earlier. He said that her sister was safe and sound thanks to him. Sena thanked him too. He was glad that Volca was unharmed too. Volca was still in disbelief that the guy he was pursuing to attack a few hours ago was really trying to save him. But what he wondered more was that he was flying through the air above the ground. He asked what the hell that was about. Geo didn't know what to do and asked him to pretend he didn't see anything, but he couldn't do that. Sena told him that even though he survived before, he wouldn't be making it out of this alive if he told anyone about this. Annie and Sifa agreed with her. She said that he could have escaped while they were fighting, but instead he stayed put. Volca said he was a little hurt. Annie told him that they were grateful for his help in the battle, but they couldn't have him tell others about the outrageous phenomenon he witnessed. Not only that, but he had also been taking part in attacks targeting Sifa. Volca didn't deny that. He said that his boss ordered him to do that, and it seemed he took a liking to her at first sight and ordered him to capture her. Sena didn't even know the guy. Sena asked if he knew a bald guy with tattoos. He said he was his predecessor. They repeated that they couldn't just let him go. They were going to drag him back to town and hand him over to the Arsal soldiers. And if he resisted, Sena would take care of him. Volca knew he had no choice but to give up, so he surrendered. They seemed surprised that he gave up that easily. Volca said red dragons were monsters with a danger rating well above A rank, and they just defeated one right in front of him. He was under no delusion that he could possibly take on a group like theirs, nor that he could manage to escape. Sina asked if he was going to keep quiet about her brother's gift. He said he owed Gio, but he couldn't promise anything. Sina approached Volka in a scary way and told him that Hezea promised her that he wouldn't scare her brother. She showed her sword to him and asked again if he would keep his promise too. Volka started sweating under this pressure because he realized that Hezea suddenly went missing was due to this girl. While trembling in fear, he said he didn't see anything. Annie said her threat worked a little too well. Now it was time to head back to the village for now. Sarasa was still on the ground, so Annie asked if she could stand. She said she was just a little preoccupied. She was imagining a love story again, about Volka and Gio. When they went back to the village chief was glad that everyone was unharmed. Sifa reported to him that the wyvern had been defeated, and she added that there was a red dragon on the mountain too, but they killed it as well. Chief was shocked because they even brought back the proof. The other people in the village heard the chief scream, so they came to see if something was wrong and saw the dragon. They were also shocked and asked how the hell they could bring that thing here. Sifa responded that this was a secret. Chief couldn't believe that their village narrowly avoided being destroyed. Everyone thanked them for saving their lives and started complimenting them. Even the kids were asking so many questions. Gio was happy that everyone was relieved after all those stressful days. Chief informed the others that he wasn't sure if the village's budget could cover the dragon extermination. All they really got was some food. Annie told them that their gratitude was enough for them as a reward. Due to certain circumstances, they couldn't hang around for too long. Sifa said that payment wouldn't be a problem. They were going to take the monster's remains with them and sell the resources they collected from it. Once again, they wondered how they were going to take the dragon with them, but they didn't respond to that either. Gio reported it while pretending to use a magic bag, and it was done. Before they left, Chief thanked them again for coming all this way. He was so grateful that it was their party that accepted this request. The fact that they were strong enough to defeat a dragon was truly a lifesaver for them. Sifa promised to rush right over if something else comes up. They waved at them as they started going, and with that they left the village with another successful request. On the road, Gio mentioned how amazing adventurers were. The villagers were also so ecstatic. Sarasa was glad that she could be of little help. Sifa corrected her, saying there was nothing little about it and she played a major role. Sina teased Volka for villagers praising him too. He said that this was just a misunderstanding. Lots of stuff happened, but this quest was finally completed. Annie stated that there was still one problem remaining. She asked Volka what kind of person his boss was and where he was. Volka asked what she was planning to do with that information. Even though they had caught him, the attacks on Sifa wouldn't stop unless they caught the real mastermind. Annie was right, they had to take down the boss. But this was a gang they were talking about, so they were a bit uneasy about it. Volka said he was going to tell them where their hideout was. He was fed up with the underworld. He was prepared to die at one time, but they went out of their way to save his life, so he started to consider living an honest life. They didn't expect something like that from an underworld guy. Annie said this might be because Gio was such a softie. Volka informed them that it would take them about a week to get back to Arsel, and this wagon was a little too cramped. Annie reminded him that he swore he would pretend he didn't see any outrageous phenomena, and he agreed. Since they confirmed that, it was time for them to use Gio's skill and teleport to the garden. They stopped the wagon and Gio used the travel between gardens skill. With a blink of an eye, Volka found himself in a whole different place. He asked what just happened, but they didn't respond. Gio said they could have Volka stay in the second garden until the wagon was scheduled to return to Arsel. Annie wanted to keep an eye on him just in case, so Gio said a golem could do that. Seeing the enormous golem in front of him, Volka recalled Hezea saying that a giant golem suddenly appeared. He reminded himself that he didn't see anything. Nothing at all. But he still questioned what the hell all this was. They simply responded that it was a secret.